I'm Emer, I'm the Executive Director of Northern Ireland Resources Network, and you're all very welcome here today to Stormont for our, as I said, our third annual members event. The 13th of July 2020 was the height of lockdown, and it was my first day working for Community Resources Network Ireland to set up a pilot project to deliver a network of reuse and repair in Northern Ireland. At the end of that first day, as I frantically Googled what are terms of reference and how to set up a steering committee, the only clear vision I had was that Zoom and I were going to have a challenging relationship. I had no vision of what this network would look like. But over the following 4 years, what has become very clear to me, and I think also very clear to a lot of people in this room, from numerous reports out there and evidence, that consumption and overconsumption has impacts not just on resource depletion, but on the amount of waste we create, but also from this report done by the UN Global Resources Outlook in 2004, that our overconsumption and use of resources is having impacts in so many different ways in terms of environmental and sustainability, be it on global emissions, be it on air pollution, be it on water stress. Again, all of us in this room should be very clear in relation to we're currently in a linear economy, where we're taking stuff, we're making it, and we're disposing of it. Some of that stuff that we are using is things that have taken hundreds, millions, if not billions of years to create, and we are using it and disposing of it in a nanosecond. And what we want to move to is a circular economy. The Department of Economy did a report 2 years ago, commissioned a report that highlighted in Northern Ireland we are 7.9% circular. So there's huge opportunity in relation to how to move forward. Within the circular economy, you have the waste hierarchy. And at the moment, the majority of the activity is happening at the bottom of the waste hierarchy in relation to disposal, recovery, and recycling. From reports that we have out there, we know that in terms of environmental, social, and economic benefits, it's much more favourable if we move to the top of the hierarchy in relation to prevention and preparation for reuse, which encompasses also repair. We at Northern Ireland Resources Network have done our own hierarchy, and what we really wanted to highlight within this hierarchy is 3 things. One, we want to move away from the word waste, because when we think about the word waste, we think of things that are disposable and have no value. Whereas when we think of the word resource, it actually then has still an intrinsic value, and we should treat it as such. The second thing we really wanted to highlight in terms of our hierarchy is how people are central to it. It's all very well talking about doing activity in terms of reduction, reuse, preparation for reuse. But if we don't have the people who have the skills, who have the creativity and the innovation, who are delivering on reuse and reduction, and also engaging with their communities for the benefits of these activities, this has got to be central to how we tackle this area. And the third thing I really wanted to highlight as well in relation to our hierarchy is that as you go up the hierarchy, what we're demonstrating is that there's more people involved as you move up the hierarchy, not just in terms of the activity, but who they're supporting. But also, as you move up, we're creating more positive impacts in relation to our environment. And then the final thing I just wanted to say today is this is who our members of the network are. These are the people who are ingrained in reuse and repair, who have been doing this in sometimes for decades. And these are the people that ongoing we should be supporting from a policy and funding perspective to ensure that they're able to continue driving awareness of the benefits of the reuse and repair sector, that they're able to continue operating what they're doing, to grow what they're doing. And also, when I stand in front of you next year, that we have increased the number of organisations who are operating in this space so that we expand the reuse and repair in Northern Ireland, and we move the dial in terms of Northern Ireland not being 7.9% circular. But what are our ambitions for the future? Many thanks. I am now delighted and also hugely relieved to hand over to Louise Cullen. Louise is those who don't know, is the BBC Northern Ireland correspondent for agriculture and environment, and she also has a personal passion for reuse and repair. So Louise is going to beautifully navigate us through the rest of today and ensure we all keep to time, which I haven't. But thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so no pressure then, obviously. Well, you're all very welcome, and thank you, Emer, for a lovely introduction. And as Emer said, today's themes are very close to my heart, both as the agriculture and environment correspondent for BBC NI, but also on a personal level in my everyday life. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we get underway. Given where we are today, what I'm about to say won't come as any surprise. We're 48 hours from the election. We're in this pre-election sensitivity period, so we're all going to be steering clear of all things political today. We do have a hashtag Nirn Stormont. Please do use it liberally for all the presenters except the Agriculture and Environment Minister, who'll be joining us later. But as for all our other presenters and speakers today, I hope you brushed your hair because you're going to get photographs taken. And just share that liberally, other insights and whatever you can on social media to raise as much awareness as possible. Share your insights in this room as well. You're all active reusers and repairers, so network, meet new people, find out what skills someone you've never met before can share with you. And we know Northern Ireland's good at recycling. Around half our waste goes into it every year. We're actually, would you believe, I found out recently, we've been ranked 9th in the world for recycling. Something we're actually good at, but we could be a lot better. But there's a world of possibilities before you get to recycling, as you've seen here already. Reuse, repurpose, reinvigorate, redeploy, repair, rediscover, rejuvenate. Absolutely, eventually, finally, perhaps resign and recycle, then recover and see where you can go with it. So if recycling's now in its young adulthood in Northern Ireland, where is the circular economy? Probably at the toddler stage. A whole raft of reasons for that. You know, we've been conditioned to consume and repair skills that are on display in this room here today. Things like sewing and how to replace things and how to use a drill safely, not pointing at anybody in particular or thinking of anyone. But these sorts of things aren't really taught anymore. They weren't drilled into me at school, certainly. I was in a class of nearly 30 girls where we were expected to share 5 sewing machines in one 35-minute class a week to get our clown pyjama case finished for our end of term assessment. It's the only time in my life I have ever got a D because I had to hand sew the blasted thing together. I didn't get near the machines. And then I had to restrain my mother from going to the school to give off. Now, if I'd let my mum do that, perhaps I would have got to use a machine and perhaps I would be better at sewing and I wouldn't have to keep going to the local seamstress to get things taken up or altered. But that was then and this is now. So this movement of reuse and repair is really a quiet revolution that's en route to becoming a way of life for many. There's growing awareness that the longer we keep things in use, the slower that waste hierarchy that Emer had on screen there moves and the better we protect the planet. It's more than that. It's sharing skills, it's helping others to learn them, and that helps build community and connection and support and mindfulness of our place in the world. So today is about collaboration. What can we learn from each other in this place we all call home? It's about finding out what's happening elsewhere. What are others doing that we can aspire to and mimic, or dare I say, even improve upon? And it's exploring how to spread the word and engage people who aren't already part of this connection and this conversation. Sometimes the universe does put you in the right place at the right time, and when I lifted my straighteners out last night to find the plug had broken, I knew that today here is where I'm meant to be. So hope you've already all booked your slot at the Repair Cafe, and there are slots available for lots of different types of repairs and they can be worked around the various presentations. And it's all with thanks to everybody that's down the back there. Be Safe, Be Well Men's Shed, East Belfast Mission, Repair Cafe Carryduff, Repair Cafe Northern Ireland, Repair and Share Foil, and Tools for Solidarity, among others. So today's proceedings are being recorded in various ways. Emer McNally is immortalising the day in graphic form, so remember what I said about brushing your hair, but it's okay, she's sketching, she can make anything look amazing. And Rosalind Skillen is creating a podcast episode of today's proceedings, so bring your best oratory, or just say what you think, really, that's the most important thing. And all your brains are going to be mined for information. That sounds painful, but you are going to be surveyed for your thoughts, what actions you're going to take away, and what you tell Emer and her crew will help inform what comes next. And they'll also be checking in with you in the future to see how you got on with your ambitions. Again, just a final reminder, we're in a pre-election sensitivity period, so post today's event on socials to your heart's content, #NIRN Stormont, but remember, nothing political. So we've a couple of panels today, and our first panel is focused on collaboration between members. So I'd like to invite our panellists to the stage. Nicola McCool from Derry City and Strabane District Council, Dan O'Reilly from the Newcastle Lions Club, Alex Jebb from Belfast City Council, and Sue Bamford from Tools for Solidarity. Welcome to the stage. Thank you all for joining us. You'll all have roughly 10 minutes or so. I'll give you a little nod when you're reaching your time. You can tell us what you're all about, and then we'll have a chat, and if there's time, we'll get some questions from the floor as well. So our first speaker is Nicola McCool from Derry City and Strabane District Council, where she's worked since 2007 and been the Waste Services Manager for the past 8 years. Nicola is passionate about all things recycling and reuse and finding ways to drive up the district recycling and composting rate. More recently, she and her team have been striving to promote reuse and sustainability. Nicola.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Nicola McCool, and I am the Waste Services Manager for Derry and Strabane District Council. I'm delighted to be here at the NIRN event this morning to talk about reuse projects that our council have been involved with. First up is our Switch to Repair campaign. Derry City and Strabane District Council obtained funding from Material Focus, an independent non-profit organisation, to develop a project to tackle e-waste, with e-waste becoming the world's fastest growing solid waste stream, with more than 50 million tonnes being generated each year. We teamed up with Repair Cafe Foil to develop a project aimed to stop hoarding and disposal of electrical items and promote reuse instead. As a council, we were limited in what we could do in terms of executing the project, in terms of our resources, so it is fantastic that we could collaborate with Repair Cafe Foil, who were an integral force in building a movement of volunteers to make Switch to Repair happen. The project is made up of holding 2 repair cafes per month throughout the city and district, where people can bring along their broken electricals and other items needing repair. This project has also targeted rural isolation. Following COVID, one of our rural recycling centres was closed down, hence reducing the capacity to recycle. We were delighted to target our peripheral communities by providing these repair cafes. To date, we have hosted 9 repair cafes, which included a special event where toy doctors were available to repair broken toys. This project has diverted 0.297 tonnes of e-waste from landfills so far. Another strand of this project is the launch of our laptop tablet donation scheme. We have 8 designated donation points throughout the city and district. Repair and Share Cafe Foil have dedicated laptop doctors who will repair the items for donation or onward sale at a reasonable cost to help tackle digital poverty in our area. The next project I want to touch on is that of Life Cycles. Life Cycles is a local social enterprise that we have been working with for over 2 years. For this project, bikes are dropped off at one of our main recycling centres in the city. Also, our recycling attendants are on the lookout for good quality bikes being brought in by members of the public, and they will also direct them to the donation point. The Life Cycles team collect the bikes on a weekly basis and take them on for repair to their workshop, which is located on our main northwest transport hub, which is also right beside our new greenway. The Life Cycles project has social, economic and environmental benefits by making active lifestyles affordable and also reducing waste to landfill. Our collaboration with Life Cycles has prevented approximately 3,200 bicycles from being sent to landfill. So Derry and Strabane District Council are implementing reuse as an integral part of council events. Most recently, as last weekend, we had our Foyle Maritime Festival, which welcomed over 100,000 visitors to our city. Our reuse initiatives included a successful deposit return scheme at the bar, hydration stations where people could come along and refill their bottles of water, a ban on all single-use plastics at the food stalls, and also we had a team of waste warriors patrolling the recycling stations to ensure that all the members of the public were putting the correct waste in the correct bins. As we all know, Derry and Strabane have the largest Halloween festival in Europe. This year, we set up donation points throughout the city and district where people could come along with their old Halloween costumes for donation. 2 successful events were held in the Guildhall and the Alley Theatre in Strabane, where people could come along and swap out Halloween costumes. This scheme is making Halloween more affordable for families and also is tackling textile waste and fast fashion. We are fortunate to have the New to You Reuse Centre on one of our main recycling centres. It is an established social enterprise. New to You recycle and repurpose furniture that would otherwise go to landfill. These items can be sold in the retail area of the shop to the local community. New to You also facilitate workshops to community members to help reskill, upskill in basic hand tools, joinery, white good diagnostics, maintenance and upcycling. The facility provides training and employment opportunities for people who are out of work or those that are unable to work. And finally, just like to touch on our paint reuse scheme, where Derry City and Strabane District Council have teamed up with Community Repaint to tackle paint waste. We have 3 drop-off points at 3 of our recycling centres. Staff check whether the paint is in good condition enough to be reused. If it passes the test, it is stored in our Community Repaint collection stores. Residents, local community groups and schools can then collect the paint free of charge for DIY jobs and use in local projects. The scheme benefits individuals, families, communities and charities in need. The leftover paint has helped people on low income to redecorate their homes at an affordable cost, and also local groups and charities refresh shared spaces and create colourful murals for the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicola. So next we have, scroll up again. So next up, as well as being a keen cyclist and grandfather, Dan O'Reilly is the recycling coordinator of the Newcastle Lions Club, where he's been a member for 30 years. His role is to promote reuse and repair, including for spectacles to benefit people in developing countries. He also encourages clubs to collect other items, but I'm not going to steal his thunder. Dan O'Reilly.
Good morning, everybody. First, I'd like to say thank you to Nirn Resource Network for inviting Newcastle Lions to take part in this conference today. So the question I pose is, what has Newcastle Lions got to do with helping to recycle, reuse waste? In Northern Ireland, we produce a lot of waste each year. A report by DAERA in 2022-23 said that our councils collected nearly 1 billion tonnes of waste, with 47% of this waste being sent for recycling. 2 groups who help councils to reduce waste are ARC21 and Regen. As you will know, that the role of ARC21 is to help support and assist the 6 councils who are advised by them to meet their statutory obligations in the field of waste and resources management and the delivery of their waste management strategies. But one of the surprising comments on their website of ARC21 is that too much of our waste is exported each year to become someone else's opportunity to recycle into higher value material, generate energy, or unfortunately, in some cases, to become someone else's disposal problem. The second group, who were recently awarded a Northern Ireland Business Award and were in our newspapers promoting 3 bins rather than 6, are Regen. Regen helps sort 200,000 tonnes of Northern Ireland waste annually. In the case of both groups, they are helping to reduce waste, but there is a cost to the public purse in their role. The Northern Ireland public are very generous in helping the developing world financially. This was confirmed by the Charities Aid Foundation, who said in a report that overall Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland give more of a proportion of their income compared to those in England. That sounds great, but how much more of a sense of achievement would those same people who donate would they feel if they knew that items they had left at our recycling centres, such as broken bicycles, sewing machines, blunt tools or unwanted spectacles, could be made good and dispatched to help people in the developing world? The role of community groups who promote rethink, reuse, repair at no cost to the public purse should now be mentioned. One of these community groups is Newcastle Lions Club. This is a group of ordinary men and women who give up a period of their time each month to help their community. As a Lion, they do this by fundraising and then donating 100% of the funds collected to a nominated charity. And secondly, by completing good works to help their community. They also help to reduce waste at no cost to the public purse. Over the last 5 years, Newcastle Lions have held an annual Recycle Reuse Collection Day. This project, which has great benefits and legacy. The benefits include motivating our club members, networking with the public about the needs to reduce, reuse, recycle, and the most important one, giving people in the developing world, the developing countries, the tools to find employment and self-respect. Lastly, reducing waste going to landfill in Northern Ireland. This project, which is traceable, sees various Northern Ireland charities being helped with donations. It is a project which we promote to the other 90 plus land clubs in Ireland. How did we do this? In Newcastle, County Down, our first task was to find a central drop-off point. Through the generosity of local business this year, we had the use of a vacant AIB bank. Last year we had McCann's chip shop, and the previous year a vacant shop. We then had to find transport. Anyone with a lorry was asked to donate its use for the day. On the day we got 3 lorries. On the day of the collection, we collected 45 adult bikes to help the charity Bike Aid Africa. These bicycles, both those in good condition and in need of repair, are serviced and then dispatched to Madagascar. Madagascar is the 3rd poorest country in the world. In June of this year, Bike Aid Africa dispatched 450 bicycles to them. We also collect tools for Solidarity. These are serviced and then made into toolkits before being dispatched to Tanzania and Malawi. We also collected sewing machines, both manual and electrical, for the same TFS. They dispatched these machines with spares to Malawi and Tanzania. The last item we collect are used spectacles. This land project is copied by every land club in Ireland. In our own case, we provide collection bins in our opticians, GPs and local library. We collect spectacles from 2 of the Newry and Mourne recycling centres, and other land clubs in the towns look after the other 8. 4 times each year, we travel to Belfast to collect spectacles from the 4 Belfast City Council recycling centres. Since 2022, we have dispatched 24,000 pairs of glasses and their cases to Lands Medico France. In France, the land club there employs opticians to clean the glasses and measure them before they are dispatched all over the world in response to requests from other land clubs. As members of Northern Ireland Resource Network, this group has helped Newcastle Lands to promote sustainable options for broken or unwanted items. We are grateful to them for also signposting us to grants that are available. An example of a successful grant application I would like to mention is in Newcastle. We are proud to manage and maintain 10 defibrillators that help save lives. Through the help of Northern Ireland Resource Network, we successfully applied for a 5,500 Communities Lottery grant to replace the 10 defibrillator cabinets. The cabinets which would, in Newcastle, a seaside town, were beginning to rust. We thank Northern Ireland Resource Network for their help in getting the grant, and thank you for your attention today.
Thanks so much, Dan. Next up, Alex Jebb is the Waste Contracts Officer within the Waste Management team at Belfast City Council, with a background in managing waste contracts and working on circular economy projects. Alex, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Many of you won't know me. I've only been with the council for 2 years now, but I've had a great opportunity to work on some circular economy projects. And I've got to meet some good people, Dan obviously being one of them. Since I started the council, we've sent over 10,000 pairs of spectacles to him, so thank you, Dan. And I've got the rest of my waste management team out here, especially Marcus, who has rolled out the blueprint for many of the projects I work on. And I have to say the most recent one being obviously the paint reuse, which we've had the biggest success on. So I'll obviously introduce the wee scheme here. So first of all, Marcus is our project lead, who I took the blueprint of. And we rolled out the paint reuse scheme across 4 household recycling centres. That scheme has now been picked up by Darren Trollan, who is doing fantastic work, and he tends to take it to the next level. Obviously, we know why we picked up the scheme. Obviously, we wanted to reduce the amount of paint going into processing. The amount of paint we send to processing every year is ridiculous. When that can be placed back into reuse, it makes sense to take it to the next level. So we've already taken obviously steps to do so, working with our external partners, East Belfast Mission. Thank you, Michael. We've had great success. So we did a trial period last year, which I took on board. I managed the scheme. I kept it very simple. That's what I do. So we basically take our paint into our 4 household recycling centres. Our staff are very, very good at obviously selecting the paint into one of 3 categories. It'll either be placed into recycling if the can's empty. If the can is obviously full, it will be placed into obviously this reuse container. And if it's not suitable for paint, you can see obviously that the paint is not suitable for reuse. It's sent for processing. Our partner, East Belfast Mission, then takes it away to their distribution centre and it's analysed to see the quality of the paint. And the final destination is of course the retail store, where then it's obviously sold on at reduced cost to community. So basically moving on, this is the bit that we got excited about. We didn't know how successful the scheme would be. We went into this hoping for great results. The national average seems to be hovering around 50%. We had a 69% hit rate, which was absolutely tremendous, and that was thanks to obviously East Belfast Mission. We took in 3.5 tonnes over the trial period. We operated that over approximately 5 to 6 months. And we took in 3.5 tonnes, 2.4 tonnes of that was suitable for reuse, which is phenomenal. That is absolutely tremendous. So obviously giving us a 69% hit rate, which is above the national average. Obviously the plans for the future is to take this to the next level. So that trial period showed us this works, this template works. So we will continue to obviously roll this out as a contract. And we obviously want everyone to bid for that. And we see great things for the project ahead. That is basically it. The paint reuse has been a success. And obviously if anyone here, any other council wants to information on what template we used, the blueprint, anything of that nature, by all means approach me directly and I'll be more than happy to help. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks very much, Alex. I particularly like the little good times ahead at the bottom there, and I'm a big one for emojis. Okay, so our next speaker is Sue Bamford, has recently joined Tools for Solidarity. She's also fairly new to Belfast. She's held a number of education and public engagement roles in southwest England, including at the Eden Project in Cornwall, where she promoted a sustainable agenda through reuse and repurposing of waste. She's also an award-winning environmental artist and is committed to spreading repair as an act of joyful rebellion. I love this phrase. Sue, welcome to the podium.
Right, what do I press?
To do that, this is my bag.
Right, no. My husband will tell you I have an anti-technology field and I can make things stop working by just looking at them funny. Which is why I stick to textiles, because I can't damage that. Okay, so yes, joyful mending. I know I'm preaching to the converted here, but this is what, when you talk to the general members of the public about repair, this is the kind of thing in their head. They think of things that are ugly, whacked together, nasty, looking broken and damaged and a bit shoddy. Here we go. I hate the phrase make, do and mend. It's putting up with. It's second rate. It's, oh, okay, I'll deal with that. I hate it. No, let us celebrate mending as the radical act that it is in fighting consumerism and overconsumption. Let's go back to what Emer was talking about at the very beginning of today. This is joyful rebellion by saying, no, I am proud to wear mended clothes. Everything that I'm wearing today, including my pants, which I am not going to show you, is either made by me or secondhand. So I'm wearing my friend Richard's suits. He used to be a banker and he decided to move to New Zealand. So I got his old suits. He found his suits very constricting, so I made a corset out of them, just to show him what constricting really is. Okay, so we cannot afford to keep going with the current system. This is a charity shop in Plymouth. They Save the Children. This is 3 days worth of collecting. We can't keep doing this. This plate is from an exhibition at Somerset House in London in 2022. It speaks for itself. And this is the Atacama Desert in Chile, where this is where your fast fashion ends up. A desert is not something that is hot. A desert is something that is dry. This stuff is never going to rot. It's going to sit there forever. And if that's 1 year, then it's the year after and the year after. And we know that fast fashion is overproducing by 30%. So 30% of stuff that is made never hits a human back. It ends up like this. And fast fashion is now producing between 80 and 150 billion garments a year. It won't tell us where in that range it is because it knows that it will freak people out. And just to put numbers in scale, if you count to 1 million, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it will take you 10 days. If you count to 1 billion, it will take you 37 years. That is the difference in scale we're talking about, because people throw these numbers around and you can't think of the scale. So what can we do? If we go back to our mending, Chinese emperor broke his favourite tea bowl back in the 6th century. Don't ask me my dates. And this is what he got back. He got a bowl mended with staples. And he went, that's rubbish, I don't like that. Do it better. So the artisans went off and they came back with this. This is called kintsugi, or the Japanese art of mending with gold. So it's a resin, and then you overlay the resin with 24 karat gold, so that your mended object is now more beautiful. Instead of your generic tea bowl that looks like 50,000 other tea bowls, you've now got a unique thing that is beautiful. It is celebrating the damage, celebrating the act of creative repair. And this image here is taking creative repair of not just the aesthetics, but the culture. I'm sure a lot of you know that the willow pattern is not a Chinese design. It's a Western interpretation of Chinese design when Chinese design, chinoiserie, became very popular in the West. But below, you have a Japanese design. You've got Hokusai's Great Wave. So this is a kintsugi piece showing East and West coming together through design, through creative repair. And let's take that, let's move forward. Let's look at repair as an act of art. So this is an artist called Celia Pym. She's in the Royal Academy, and she creates things that are beautiful using utilitarian mending. So this is just darning her uncle's jumper, and the one on the far, what's this, left? I can't tell left from right, I'm really bad. The one on the left was also mended, and it was in the same exhibition as the plate I showed you earlier about creative repair. The catalogue for that exhibition is online. It's called Eternally Yours. To say let's be genuine materialists, not consumers. Let's be materialists. Let's actually value our material culture. Someone who's working in this right now is Dr. Kate Sakoulis. I have her manifesto, which, if you're interested in this, I strongly recommend you reading this one. It shows you not only why, but how. It's all very well saying why, we know why, but how? Where are the skills? Other members here have been talking about the skills. How do we get these skills back into schools? Until very recently, every school child in Ireland was taught to knit. And there are people out there who are trying to get this back into schools, including me. So, Dr. Kate is doing an exhibition in America at the moment in the Winterthur Gallery, and she put out a call. She had a bunch of socks that had holes in, and she said, let's mend them, let's make them beautiful. So, a little bit of Belfast is there. These ones here, we mended them. That's Twinkle Toes, fixed and now forever in a gallery, to say we can make mending art, we can make it beautiful. Let's mend with pride. And looking at, let's have some whimsy with it. So this is a Japanese artist that uses the same darning stitch as Celia Pym, but instead of it being utilitarian, she's made it cute. But it's the same if you've ever done any darning, it's over, under. Very simple stitching. Let's make it cute. Let's bring these two ideas together using darning as a technique. So, a tale of two jumpers. These are my husband's jumpers that we had the great moth summer of 22, where me and moths. So these are just bog standard, generic jumpers from Marks and Sparks, but they got mothed. So first of all, I repaired with some visible mending, and then we moved to Belfast, and when we unpacked them, we found that his favourite bohemian hipster black polo neck was truly mothed. You can see just how many holes. So I've covered the holes with little bits of paper to see where my holes were, so I can plan a design bringing these two ideas together. So I mapped out a frog because, I said, what kind of animal can we put on there? And it's like, a frog, obviously. So using this same very simple darning stitch, So this is a jumper. I've killed the microphone. This is a jumper that is, if it went to a charity shop, and I know this because I used to work in, I can't be trusted. I can't be trusted. I'll repair the microphone. Give me a needle. When I worked in Oxfam, up to 80% of the stuff that's donated ends up being ragged. It seems unrepairable because we don't have the skills. So now Oxfam Hollywood saved me all their mothed cashmere, because cashmere, the moths do love it. And we're going to turn them into works of art. So I've taken something that would have seen as completely unsalvageable, but is just a little bit of creativity. And it can be. And the joy is, I can teach you these skills. Using the network. That is the power of the network, is we're here, we've got the skills, let's get out there. So the green jumper, we went for a dinosaur. So again, let's make it fun. Let's wear our men's with pride. Let's get out there and say, yes, this was ruined. And, I know we're in the assembly, we're in places where we have to wear business, and, I'm in a suit and tie today. It doesn't happen very often. But we can do it and make it beautiful. So this is, again, a cashmere jumper, and I've taken an old headscarf and cut the motifs out of the silk headscarf and used that to cover up the holes. I can't show you this one because this was part of an exhibition at my local Tavistock area support group. and we sold the items to raise money for the charity. And again, we sit and we do the mending together. We teach the skills. We have a biscuit. It's all brilliant. So you can make it a bit more elegant than my crazy whimsy. So you can go full on mad hippie, or you can go elegant. You know, you don't have to think, oh, I work in a business environment, I can't get away with mending. Change the paradigm. Let's do that. Okay, so yes, I'd say let us be true materialists. Let us value our material culture. This is some gentle darning I did on a very expensive cashmere scarf for a friend of mine. I'm working with a repair cafe. This is a little tiger that a chap has had for 60 years, and we mended tiger for him. Because these objects have value. These objects have emotional connection. So let's keep them in circulation for longer. To go back to Dr. Kate, she talks not only about hand-me-ups, but hand-me-alongs. Let's make things horizontal. Let us share our resources. And in talking of sharing and talking with the network, Tools for Solidarity is very proud to be part of street stitching, where we go and we sit in public. That's Nora. Nora's hiding at the back with the camera. Hello, Nora. So we sit outside Primark and Castle Court, and we say, let's mend things. And you see people going past with their Zara bags and their Primark bags. And it's not about making anybody feel guilty or feel bad, but just plant little seeds of there is another way of doing it. And we're here to help provide the skills. So fast fashion is very good at appropriating what is going on. So this is Japanese Boro, where Japanese monks would wear very heavily mended garments to show humility. And Ralph Lauren has completely co-opted it into fast fashion. Not exactly unusual. So we're going to steal that idea back from them. In terms of collaboration, today is all about collaboration. Tools for Solidarity is working with Belfast City Council. It's a little pilot project where we're doing a fashion show. So we're going out into community groups and building sewing skills with community groups and getting some fantastic conversations going over tea and biscuits. This will happen in Belfast in September. So we've asked 5 groups to be spring, summer, autumn and winter, and then we're going to finish with a wedding dress. So that's the big bump about it. Gala fashion show, both a community event in its planning and in its execution. The models, we are looking for models if anyone wants to volunteer. And we want the models to be a wide range. We don't just want size 6 skinny twigs. That's easy, that's lazy. Let's get everybody looking gorgeous, because fashion is our social identity. And this is how we fight it. So we're getting people learning skills. I can show you a little sneak peek. This is my cat helping me mend. So we've taken, here's our Taylor Swift wearing crochet in Dublin. So I've taken this blanket that came from Oxfam that was truly knackered. So we filled it in, and that's now a cardigan. And if you want to see what the cardigan looks like, you'll just have to come to the fashion show in September. But a little sneak peek is, this is the ladies from Knocknagonie. We've taken a pile of old denim from Oxfam, and we've started embroidering it and turning it into a skirt. And they're just having great fun, and they're really relating to this reuse, and they've got these skills they never remembered they had. And it's all about community and getting out there. So please do join in. And the next thing we're making, we're going to steal this Ralph Lauren jacket. That jacket retails for £1,199. The jeans, which are mended, £319. So we're going to show you can do it on a budget, and you can do it better, and you can have a damn sight more fun doing it than shopping. We spend so much time shopping. Let's sit together and eat a biscuit and do some sewing instead. It's good for your mental health. Thank you very much for listening.
Anybody else feel inspired right now? Slightly intimidated as well. You haven't seen what I can do with the needle.
You can. Please don't. I am not exceptional. These are basics. I've been doing it since I was 6, but it's just time. It's, do it. Listen to television and do your knitting. It's great fun.
Yeah. So let's chat about that. I mean, building these skills into people. And it's something that I think comes across from all of you. I mean, bringing community into this, because it's not a solo run, as Ralph Lauren has gone on. I mean, do you find, like Nicola, you mentioned about the community buy-in, you know, people patrolling, saying to people, this is the right bin for that. Do you find there's buy-in, that people want to do the right thing, whether it's recycling properly or whether it's, you know, getting together to darn, or is it getting together to share paint or to work together on projects internationally? Is there the buy-in? Are people motivated?
In a way, yes, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement for this, you know, especially in educating people to know, you know, that recycling matters, reuse matters, you know, that everything isn't just going to the one place, the hole in the ground, you know, and getting people motivated to buy in and all the schemes and the reuse that's out there.
Yeah. And I suppose, Dan, I mean, some of those figures that you had about, you know, the amount of bikes that you've done, the amount of spectacles in 2 years is just incredible. That altruistic element people really like, but what about keeping it here? Are they passionate about that, about creating this here in Northern Ireland?
Yeah, what we found was that on our last collection day in the Allied Irish Bank, where we had young people coming along and were surprised at what we were doing and saying to us, you know, we found it was great for networking, that we were motivating young people who said to us afterwards, can we help out? And it made such an impression on them. So we really enjoyed that and found that.
Yeah. And so I'm sure you find people sitting down with a biscuit and a bit of material. That's a great way to create those networks. I mean, I'm fascinated by the whole fast fashion issue, because we were chatting about this last night, not to digress too much, but a friend of mine had ordered a dress cheaply because she has the most minimal wardrobe. I mean, I love my clothes. My friend's wardrobe, I look at it, there are 4 things hanging in it, and it makes me cry a little bit, but it's fine. It's very good. She's very disciplined. But she ordered a dress, expected it maybe wouldn't be up to much because it was cheap, but then she tried to return it because it came up with free return. Turned out the label was post to China, which wasn't going to be free in anybody's book. And she went through an entire battle, a series of about 5 or 6 emails. You told me it would be free return. Can I get my refund? And how do I get my free return? Oh, keep the dress and we'll refund you 20%. No, I don't want the dress. There's no point me having this dress. It doesn't work for me. Long story short, eventually she got her refund, but the people said to her, keep the dress. I mean, that's how little we're valuing things.
That's what I mean about 30% overproduction. That is the business model. With your Amazon returns, they don't get repackaged and sent back out to the next customer. They get binned. They get binned. That's what happens. You know, when you buy, I'll try a 12 and a 14, and you keep the 14 and you send back the 12. The 12 ain't going anywhere on another human being. We have to know, and the fact is, when you tell people this, that is when you can make the change. But it has to be joyful. I'm very serious about play. If it has to be more fun on our side of the crazy gate, because all the social media, all the pressure on children is saying consume, 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 and be unhappy, we'll just sell you the thing that will make you happy. So if we can show we are happier with less, we are happier with second best, with second-hand, not second best. We are happier in our little second-hand frugal lives. That is what is going to inspire. Envy is the wrong word, but I can't think of a better one right now. We have to be having more fun.
It's aspirational.
It has to be aspirational. Yeah,
something.
and it is just more fun.
Yeah. And in terms, I mean, paint, household paint, I know fully well, Alex, my shed is, you know, there are pots sitting there, and I do open up every spring and I look and go, I'm sure that'll do. I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to DIY, I have to be honest. But I mean, that's an incredible return rate. Nearly 2,500 kilos that's actually suitable for reuse that go in the bin, and that's kind of heartbreaking.
And there's further potential there. We're only just at the tip of the iceberg. I say this was only a trial to see if there was potential and to see if there was demand, and there is very much a demand. We haven't touched on community projects, schools, etc., etc. So there's a lot of scope for this project. Certainly we'll be pushing it ahead.
And for the two of you, Nicola and Alex, both as council representatives, how much networking goes on between the councils? Because I live in Fermanagh and Omagh, and we've got our paint donation, and we've fantastic recycling centre, and it's being changed again and so on. How much connection goes across that sort of civic governance side of things?
It is. Well, thanks to these folk here in the NIRN, I have to say that's where I started off. I'm only with the council 2 years, and basically I was handed a telephone number. And thanks to these folks here, I've been put in touch with Michael, Dan, there's many other familiar faces here. So it's very critical, very critical.
Yeah. Do you find that you get talking to a lot of people that this comes up for you, Nicola, to connect, particularly out in the West? If you want to pass the mic along there.
Absolutely. You know, we have a range of conferences and co-council meetings. You know, we're all there and we're able to talk to each other and see what each council is doing and picking up tips and ideas. And yeah, definitely, it's important, the connections.
So collaboration is one of the big themes of today, and you've all brought your expertise here. Just in a word from each of you, in a short sentence, what do you hope to take away from today for collaborating in future? What's your hope to walk out of this room with?
Definitely the incentive for more projects, and hopefully leaving here today encouraging people possibly to look at, you know, the electrical recycling too, because it's a project that I'm very passionate about.
Fantastic. Dan, what would you like to take out of this room, other than maybe some more spectacles?
And networking with other community groups, and to sort of try and do more for the circular economy.
Great.
100%. Back down. We're here to support other councils as well as accept the support ourselves, and we can only achieve it by working together.
I think also intergenerationality. That's a very long word. But
It
yeah,
sounds really good though.
yeah. And that intersectional intergenerationality, says Sue, making up words. We have to bring the younger generation on, and we have to do that by sharing the skills and showing them it can be fun and showing that they are powerful. The young people often feel they don't have a voice, and they're the ones that can be carrying it on, and they're the ones that are really going to be living through the climate change that is happening now. Let's show them that we actually listen to them and that we want them involved, and as genuine partners, not we'll tell you what to do, little kids, as genuine partners, and also finding solutions.
Is there an element, do you think, of things having skipped a sort of intermediate generation? I feel really deprived right here. I'm putting myself in that generation that I didn't learn how to, I can sew a button on, but I cannot hem a pair of trousers.
If we do have ministers listening, then, you know, we had a conversation earlier, we have to challenge this idea of STEM being the most important thing. I need things to get steamy. We need to put the A in STEM, and we need the arts back at the front, because arts is everything. It is like, I'm going to be, okay, arts is the oldest profession. You look at the history of our species, what did we do? We made art.
We painted on walls.
We painted the walls. And in order for those experts to be doing the wall painting, they were supported by their communities with practical things like food. So if we weren't supporting artists, we wouldn't have the caves in Lascaux. We wouldn't have this beautiful history. So let's put art back in the centre where it actually is. It's bread and roses. We need our bread and roses. And that's what makes life the difference between surviving and wonderful. It's not the add-on, it is the foundation.
You're nodding away there, Alex. Yeah, and a little bit of a
With
round
his
of
paint.
applause. Yes.
With his paint.
Yes, exactly. The paint is practical and beautiful. Yeah. I mean, that is it. I mean, as I say, Alex, I literally slapped paint on. I had to go round to my neighbour's driveway and pick little flecks off her car. It was really embarrassing, but it was fine. It washed off in the rain. It was water soluble. But, you know, art, okay, slapping paint on a wall is not a thing of beauty necessarily, but to facilitate that, that's important. I mean, you were nodding away while Sue was speaking. Yeah.
Speaks way with words, obviously words from experience. Definitely there is a demand. So look forward to the future.
Yeah, yeah. Dan, I love the picture of all those bikes being loaded on the lorry. I love just that. To me, that just sent a message of connection locally and internationally, but that willingness as well. There's an art in that. It's physical art, there's metaphysical art where you're creating that connection as well.
Indeed, I mean, on that day, the photograph there is of young people. They're not land. They were, fair enough, we had land volunteers there, but young people came in off the street and said, can we give you a hand to load the bicycles, and what happens to them? So they were learning that those bikes are going to Madagascar, as I say, which is the poorest country, and the bikes are used by people to go to work on, and that's helping to give them self-respect.
That's what I mean about joyful rebellion. There you are doing that joyful rebellion.
Yeah, and you're doing that up in the Northwest as well, with cups that I know some people in this room may or may not have taken home with them as very useful and to be redeployed for picnics. And that's what you want.
Definitely, yeah. Promoting the reuse at all our events is very important.
Yeah, great. Well, we're just about coming up to our coffee break time. We've time for maybe one question from the audience. If anybody would like to pop a hand up and shout anything out. Anybody inspired to? Yes, there's a tentative hand. Just shout your question out there. Caroline. Caroline's going to bring you a mic so that we can hear you.
If people can hear me. Sue just talked about consumption and how we deal with consumption. And I just wondered, I know we have 2 councils on the audience as well, and do you find there's a conflict between our economic development and growth and tackling overconsumption, and that recycling is sort of the norm? How do we move people up the hierarchy? I just wondered how you feel about that and the tension.
Yeah.
There is real tension with our economic development on our consumption.
Yeah, you've got to.
But I think it goes back to what Emer was saying at the very beginning. We have to stop using that word waste and talk of it as a resource. And you look at just how much is in landfill in terms of rare earth minerals. I was at a very interesting Nirn event earlier in the year about the circular economy, talking about just how much gold and how much iridium is being lost through mobile phones ending up in landfill. And it was terrifying. It's like 50 billion just in the UK alone is just being thrown away of these minerals which are incredibly rare and use child labour to exploit. So we have to look at our waste as a resource that can be mined. There are the opportunities for the future. We have to transition from our addiction to carbon. It's going to be forced upon us by the sheer fact that we're running out of oil. We're going to have to transition. So there's only so much we can do as individual consumers, so we need our pressure groups to be forcing through more transition to a cleaner, safer economy. Or climate change is just going to come and bite us, and it's coming soon. We're at war with nature and we ain't going to win.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody else would like to add anything on, then we can wrap up.
Could I say that one of the groups that I talked about was ARC 21. Most of us have a wee small brown bin which we put food waste into. The bags that you use they're supplied by ARC 21, and ARC 21 are making our councils aware of the need to recycle and the targets that they should be meeting. So it's good that the likes of ARC 21 are there as a group promoting recycling and helping the situation.
Yeah, great. Do you want anything to add, Nicola? Well, look, I think we're just scraping into our coffee time here. So I'd like to thank our panel. I'd like you to join me thanking Sue Bamford, Alex Jebb, Dan O'Reilly, and Nicola McCool. Thank you all very much indeed. It's been really fascinating. Thank you. So all of you now have half an hour to grab a cuppa and take a look around our reuse and repair cafe, our exhibitions. I got chills going around it earlier. Enjoy. Most importantly, connect with each other. There's tea and coffee outside, and we'll see you back again just after 11:30. Thank you very much. So, this morning was all about collaboration. Our next panel is all about what's happening elsewhere. Learning from each other's experience is crucial. So I'd like to invite to the stage Philip Nugent from the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications, Neva Nachtigal from Reuse, Fiona Deere from the Restart Project, and Claire Downey from the Rediscovery Centre. Please welcome to the stage. Okay, so same format as this morning. We'll get a brief chat from each of them, a brief presentation as to who they are and what they do, and we'll have a chat afterwards. So it seems right that our first place to look should be our immediate neighbour to the south. Philip Nugent is the Assistant Secretary at the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications in Ireland, where he leads on the circular economy and governance. He's also responsible for policy across mineral exploration and mining, petroleum exploration and extraction, the Geological Survey of Ireland, inland fisheries and waste and resource efficiency. Philip. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with you today in a beautiful location. So I'm going to rattle through my slides. I've got about twice as many as I would normally have. So I will be brief on most of them. So I'm going to start with a bit of policy context, where we've come from over the last few years, and then towards the end talk about where we're at the moment in terms of support for reuse and repair. So the policy context is National Circular Economy Strategy, published in 2021, preceded by a Waste Action Plan for a Circular Economy in 2020, delivered within about a month of the current government taking office. The transition of the EPA's former National Waste Prevention Programme to become the National Circular Economy Programme, and then the National Waste Management Plan for a Circular Economy, which was published earlier this year by the three regional offices who deliver local authority waste management planning services, and we've gone from 3 regional waste management plans into one single national waste management plan. Just some of the logos from the various documents there, and here are some of the specific things that I'll talk about a little bit more in terms of deposit return scheme, green public procurement strategy. Thank you. Circular Economy Innovation Grant Scheme, and also the work that we're doing with Circular Economy on our circularity gap report. So the first circular economy strategy, as I say, published in December 2021. The overall approach set out the overall approach to the circular economy. It was really about socializing the concept, explaining what it was, and to try to demystify and to give people practical examples of what the circular economy is. So ranging from the highly evolved and technical end of things in terms of, for example, industrial symbiosis, down to the really practical things like choosing to use a reusable cup, getting a pair of shoes repaired, etc., etc. So to try to demystify, to simplify the concept to people and to make it clear to them that they're actually doing circular things every day, or if they aren't doing circular things every day, well, their parents were, or their grandparents were, by darning socks, that kind of thing. That's a circular economy action. Using Spotify as a circular economy action, using Netflix as a circular economy action, because it's about a product as service instead of buying a new thing yourself. There's also a commitment in the circular economy strategy to revise it on an ongoing basis. And that's why we're working now on the strategy 2.0. So this has a statutory basis underpinned by the Circular Economy Act, and it will include circularity targets for different sectors, including agriculture, construction, retail, packaging, textiles, and electronic equipment. We'll probably move earliest on the construction side of things, because about 9 million tonnes of construction and demolition waste is produced every year in Ireland. We believe about 6 million of that is potentially reusable. So we're going after things like ending recovery levy exemptions for C&D waste, removing landfill levies for C&D waste, really going after Article 27, 28 byproduct and end of waste notifications on a national level for certain C&D products. The targets to be set out must include any or all of the following. So reductions in material resource consumption, increases in the use of reusable products, increased levels of repair and reuse of products, and improved maintenance and optimized uses of goods, products and materials. And it'll be action oriented, or it must be action oriented. The first version, as I said, was kind of about demystifying, explaining the concept, not very actions focused, and any actions that were in there were focused on our department or local authorities or the EPA, so the kind of the statutory family, if you like. The next version must be much more outward looking and include actions for the various industries and sectors of the economy. It'll be based on a comprehensive and detailed analysis of national material flows. So again, our first was high level policy based. What we don't have, but which Northern Ireland does have, is a circularity gap report. So we will be learning from your example, and that will be the primary input to developing the next version of the circular economy strategy. So the gap report will size our circularity gap. We have a figure at the moment that our circularity rate is about 1.9% behind the EU average, which is 12%. And those measures that I mentioned in terms of construction, we think could double or treble our circularity rate pretty quickly. But the honest truth is we don't really know. So we need to understand further how raw materials are processed and assembled to become the products that address the country's needs. So the circularity gap report will measure our gap and provide a starting point to identify where the different sectors and supply chains should focus strategies to achieve the transition. It'll set out the measures to get us there. It'll set out how the circular transition will impact the labour market and examine jobs and skills as levers for change. And it'll examine how circular strategies can address challenges in the individual sectors. So we have some preliminary work from Circular Economy, and we met earlier this week with stakeholders to go through some of these key messages that are emerging. So we know that we have a material and carbon intensive economy that has relatively high and tightly coupled material and carbon footprints. We have just 3 industries that contribute to the 64% of our material footprint and 38% of the carbon footprint. Our circularity indicator set shows how all of the materials consumed in the Irish economy, of all the materials consumed in the Irish economy, around half are consumed are biomass. Over half of all materials consumed are going into stock buildup. The share of secondary materials is very low. The level of circular jobs is low, but not really different to other EU countries. And there's an inverse correlation between material and carbon intensive sectors and their level of circular employment. So key scenarios that have been proposed to us already for closing the gap are to shift to a circular food system, to advance circular manufacturing, embrace circular consumer goods, build a circular built environment, and redesign mobility. And we're aiming to have a final report published in September 2024 and hopefully a second version of the circular economy strategy by the end of this year. And all of this comes on the back of the Waste Action Plan for a Circular Economy 2020 to 2025. And this had high level ambitions around, for example, actions that we would impose on the waste collection system to get us towards where we need to in terms of our recycling rates for 2025 and beyond. And then things like introduction of a deposit return scheme, establishment of a textile advisory group, to promote eco-design for textiles in collaboration with designers and retailers. And then also trying to anticipate what would come at an EU level in terms of Sustainable Products Initiative, because we realised at that time that while there are lots of things that we would like to do in terms of repairability of goods, we're much more able to do those things as part of the EU market. So we have a National Textiles Advisory Group, and this was to deliver on our commitment to tackle the environmental degradation caused by textile waste in close collaboration with relevant stakeholders. It's chaired by an industry expert, Gwen Cunningham, and the Textile Advisory Group, which was established in 2022, brings together all of the expertise that we need, because again, one of the key things that we've learned in recent years is that the circular economy transition, or even delivering change in the waste sector, is not something that a government department can do on its own. It's much bigger than that. So we have a waste advisory group, and it's really a circular economy advisory group, I would say at this stage, that brings in all of the stakeholders, and it's a two-way channel of communication. So we bring things to the group, but we also expect the group to use their reach to bring messages from our group to them, because they have reach into a stakeholder group that we just don't have. I'll just flick through the next one. So we have a GPP strategy, which was published earlier this year. 14% of EU GDP is through government procurement or public procurement. So very important to harness that reach and to achieve the policy outcomes that we want through green public procurement. There's one that I want to get to. Too many visuals here, sorry. Really what I wanted to get to was the National Waste Management Plan. Well, actually, I'll just focus on this for one moment if I can. So we have a national reuse and repair network. So the purpose is to facilitate knowledge sharing and engagement to support and scale reuse and repair activities in Ireland. And the network provides a national overview of reuse and repair activities, avoiding duplication of work and identifying opportunities to work collaboratively to deliver strategic priorities. So the steering group has its it's ourselves, the EPA and the local government sector, but we also have diverse membership to inform the work that we do at the National Reuse and Repair Network. So it's a very important resource for us. I'll skip through that one, and just to focus on, I don't know if you can see this, but I'll leave the slide, you can circulate it afterwards. But one of the things that we said in the Waste Action Plan for a Circular Economy was that the National Waste Management Plan would include targets for reuse and repair. And that wasn't us just sidestepping the idea of targets and putting an obligation on the local government sector. We knew that that's where it's much more effective in terms of the direct levers that they have. So we're really delighted that the local government sector did come together, and they have included targets for reuse and repair in the National Waste Management Plan. Funding is going to be a key issue there, and we have a circular economy fund which is made up of revenues from the landfill levy, recovery levy and plastic bag levy, and soon to include the coffee cup levy. And that's going to be a key enabler of circular economy transition and support for really innovative reuse and repair initiatives. We had our Circular Economy Innovation Grant Scheme 2024, just call for proposals issued about 2 weeks ago. It's only going to go one way in terms of the level of funding that's available for that. So between the National Waste Management Plan and the Circular Economy Innovation Grant Scheme, we think that that's going to be a really powerful enabler of reuse and repair into the future. So thank you.
Philip, thanks so much. I hope that wasn't too off-putting, me wiggling a couple of fingers at you. So thank you so much. So next, for the last year, Neva Nachtigal has been the Director of Reuse, Europe's largest network of reuse, repair and recycling social enterprises. She came to the role with a background in journalism and international policy, research and communications, focused on social and economic justice, sustainability and human rights. Neva.
Hello, let me start my stopwatch because I will otherwise not keep the time. It is such a pleasure and privilege to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's my first time in Northern Ireland, and based on the landscapes I've seen and people I have encountered, I really wholeheartedly hope it won't be the last. I'm really very positively impressed, so thank you for having me here. Indeed, I will speak a bit from the European perspective. Because I work for a network of networks of social enterprises in the circular economy. And I intend to tell you a bit today about what we do, what our members do, and then I'll get to probably what you're most interested in, namely how the policy has been mainstreaming reuse and repair across Europe. So as you heard, we're Europe's largest network of social enterprises active in reuse, repair and recycling. This is a very dense map. And your social enterprises here in Northern Ireland would also actually be part of this, because we consider social enterprises that are members of our members also being in our network. So welcome to all of you. If you didn't know, you are also a member of the network I am from. So this is the logos of our members from across Europe, and Northern Ireland Resources Network is one of our newest members, and we are really very happy to have you with us and excited to see what the future holds for us. What we stand for, well, our mission is to empower, represent and support the community, also the community in this room. And we have a vision of an inclusive circular economy that is based on reuse and repair, in solidarity with both people and the environment. I'll go a bit quickly through these slides, but basically we have a growing recognition at the EU level, which is where I predominantly work, also among allies and environmental and social organizations, that these social enterprises in the circular economy fulfill a role that nobody else fulfills. What our members do, and I'm sorry, the slides got a little wonky, they collect, sort and redistribute 26 different, I'll call them material streams rather than waste streams, that are very diverse, from furniture, textiles, to tires, paint, anything you can think of. They promote these best circular and social practices. Very importantly, they make essential goods available to households, people from all income levels, so they actually tackle poverty in that way. They provide jobs, training and skills, so they promote social inclusion, and they advocate for an enabling environment at various levels. Quickly about impact, the most important figure that we like to quote is that the members create about 70 jobs per 1,000 tons of waste, here it's waste, collected with a view of being reused. We also talk about economic impacts. So the members run 2,400 secondhand shops, have quite large turnover, and also have large environmental impacts that you can find on our website, and hopefully we'll have this presentation available later as well. The organization that I represent, so Reuse, we're based in Brussels. I lead the secretariat of this network. We coordinate the network, we try to facilitate exchange of best practice, foster partnerships. We take part in our international projects ourselves. We gather data, like you saw before, to showcase members' impact. And I'm getting inspired by the way you are presenting yours, so I will take some photos and notes home. And we sit in a lot of rooms like this one, perhaps not as nice as this one, but we advocate for the sector, and we try to predominantly work on creating an enabling policy environment for the kinds of organizations that you work in. We publish various reports, conduct research. These are some recent examples. So for example, we showcased how our members build skills that are relevant in the circular economy. We do this a lot on case study basis. So we really want to present an actual social circular enterprise and the work it does, so that the policymakers also understand what this means. It's not just some abstract concepts. We talk about public procurement. We really like to talk about green and socially responsible public procurement, and we advocate for all the policies to link the two areas, so the green and the social agenda. And we recently published this for a job-rich and inclusive circular economy, which was in the context of EU elections. So this is sort of our priorities for the next term that we also want the policymakers to take on. Now I go to the measures. That's probably the most interesting part. I'll start with what the EU is doing. So some of the recent breakthroughs, let's say, one is the Council recommendation. So this is by all member states representatives. They agreed with a really overwhelming support on developing social economy framework conditions. So we expect that in the next few years, this will be a very, very important policy measure for our members to advocate at the national level for an enabling policy environment. And crucially, and we really can trace our own impact there, even though this is not an environmental type of measure, we managed to get social economy actors in circular economy specifically included in the recommendation. Currently, the Waste Framework Directive is being revised at the EU level. And very importantly, so far, all EU institutions have recognized social enterprises' tremendous role in reusing textiles. So we're hoping that this goes through, but so far the Parliament, the Council and the Commission agree on this vital role. Another very important thing that happened is the Right to Repair Directive. It's of course a first step and fell short in many ways, but quite importantly also for what you do as an inspiration. So it's some steps toward fair access to spare parts, introducing national financial incentives for repair, and to increase the visibility of reuse and repair. And now this comes more to the level of what states, countries can do. So, I call this the toolbox. It seems fitting for the reuse and repair conversation. There are really very many options for policy interventions. And in fact, I don't have enough time to go through all of this, but every bullet point there already has an example in practice. So it's very important to recognize the certifications by skill providers and the social and circular economy. The green and socially responsible public procurement is a major policy instrument the public authorities have on hand. You can lobby here also for reduced or zero VAT on repair services. That's a very important tool that public authorities have on hand. There can be tax deductions for consumers or subsidies for consumers opting for repair. We advocate strongly for quantitative reuse and repair targets. Currently, they're usually lumped together, if at all, with recycling. But that's a very important thing, and it's our next big advocacy point. And of course, extended producer responsibility. And as I go now to two very specific examples, I will show where and why this is so relevant. So one concrete example comes from France. So what countries can do? They introduced a repairability index that will be replaced soon with a durability index. It's mandatory in France since 2021. It focuses on electrical and electronic equipment, and basically it gives a 1 to 10 score. This is for consumer information on repairability of the items they're buying. And this score is composed of various elements, and it has made quite a difference, I think, in consumer awareness. And Belgium followed suit, so they introduced the same measure last year. I have 2 timers, and I'm being told by both that I have to wrap up, but I'm almost there. And then this one is, I think, especially also really relevant, is the repair bonus. I put up the example of Austria, not to speak only about France. In there, it was launched in 2022, covers almost all electronic and electrical equipment. And basically, consumers can download vouchers from just online that will cover up to 50% of the repair cost estimate. And here, this was based on a pilot in the city of Vienna, where they then ran a survey, or they presented data that 9 out of 10 items could be repaired. France has a similar bonus, a repair bonus, for electrical and electronic equipment since 2022. And then last year, they added textiles and shoes. The big difference between the two, I mean, they have a flat rate payment depending on the product. The main difference, and something to take into account when we're designing these measures, is that in Austria, the funding came from an EU COVID response package. And so it's a certain bag of money, and this repair bonus will be available as long as the money lasts. Whereas in France, they are funding this from sort of the extended producer responsibility concept. So producer responsibility organizations are the ones that have to provide the funding for this. And that's probably the best way forward to ensure that these measures can be supported. All right, and now I will leave you with why this matters. I mean, you know why it matters yourselves, but I'm very happy to say that in our efforts on Waste Framework Directive, we mobilized over 80 social and environmental NGOs in Europe to sign to say that this is an environmental imperative, as well as a catalyst for inclusive economic and social development. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Niva, thank you so much. Next up, we have Fiona Dare, co-director of the Restart project based in London, which aims to keep our electronics in use for longer through repair and reuse. And she has spent more than 15 years engaging public audiences in environmental issues. Fiona.
Thanks for having me. The Restart project is quite a small charity with the not so small aim of fixing our relationship with electronics. So we're quite busy. But we started about 12 years ago, kind of out of frustration, which I'm sure a lot of us, and actually the general public shares, that things break too quickly. When they break, you kind of know it's just a small bit of it, but it's really hard to get repaired. And then that frustration that we all have, when you have to throw something away, that you know that kind of like 98% of it is fine and it's just one little bit. So we wanted to change that in various ways. We do a lot. We support repair cafes in London and across the UK with the Community Repair Network, but we also campaign, and that's what I'm going to talk about here because I don't need to talk to you about community repair. So I'm going to talk about right to repair, what we have in the UK. There's actually quite a lot of overlap, which is probably a good thing between me and Niva. But yeah, so we have right to repair rules in the UK. They were introduced in 2021, and they were introduced as part of an EU package, and we were locked in before Brexit happened. But then, I mean, they're very kind of scratching the surface. They're for white goods and TVs only. They only apply to repair professionals. And sorry, I'm just going to step back and explain what this means. So the right to repair regulations mean that you should be able to get spare parts and repair manuals for these for white goods and TVs for at least 10 years after the product has gone off the market. So the idea is that it's kind of removing those barriers to repair that get put in the way by manufacturers. But they are limited, and as the EU legislation has evolved, the EU legislation now covers smartphones and tablets. The UK legislation hasn't evolved at all. So there's a lot that we've got to do, and the challenge in the UK, and I came from climate campaigning, so I was used to it being the issue that lots of people talked about, is that repair and reuse is not a prominent issue. And an MP that we worked with recently nailed it when she said that repair is so obvious that it just gets forgotten, and like very few people object to repair. But also very few people, not including people in this room, get really, really excited about it, right? So that's our challenge. How do we kind of raise the profile? What this means is that we end up throwing away a load of stuff that could be reused. So we did a study of an e-waste bin, an electrical waste bin in a waste facility last year. We found that a third of the products weren't even broken. They were still working, but they'd been sent for recycling. Another 10% of the products were very easily repairable. There were others that needed a complicated repair, but that adds up to about half of that e-waste bin that's being sent for shredding and recycling that could have been kept in use. And when you scale that up to, you know, our global e-waste mountain that weighs more than the Great Wall of China each year, if you could cut that in half and keep that in use, how much difference would that make? So we're doing a follow-up to that project, which we're calling Beyond Recycling of E-Waste, and it's a bit of a citizen science project. So we're looking at how much reuse is actually happening in our waste facilities, and we're going to contrast that with what people are expecting, because we know that people think recycling actually also means repair and reuse. And I think that people will be really surprised to see how little of it is actually kept in use. We'll be launching that on Repair Day in October. This has gone a bit squiffy too. But so our main campaigning tool at the moment is we've got a repair and reuse declaration. There are some copies of it at the back and some leaflets on it if you want to kind of take some away. And so we're calling for a lot of the same policies that Neva just spoke about. We know that one of the biggest barriers to repair is cost. So we want measures to make repair more affordable, so tax reductions, repair vouchers, inspired by other countries that have done that. We want to expand our right to repair regulations so they cover all electronic products and that these spare parts and product information is available to everybody. We want people to be able to choose more repairable products, and as Nova said, that shifts consumer behaviour, and that has a knock-on effect on the manufacturers because then they make products more repairable, and we've seen that happening. But it also gives a really important message to consumers when at the point of sale, when they're buying something, that this is a repairable product, that, you know, when the warranty runs out, you don't just throw it away, you can still repair it. So that's really important. We really think we need reuse targets, and reuse targets are what would shift that dynamic that I was just talking about. At the moment, we only have recycling targets, and they actually disincentivize waste processors and manufacturers to do any reuse because they're so busy trying to meet their recycling targets, and that's just perverse. So we need targets, and we need more repair skills. If repair is going to become the norm, we need more people who can do it. So the declaration is a thing that any groups can sign up to. So if you're not signed up already, you can either sign up online or get some of the materials at the back. And we're also trying to get lots of politicians to sign up. And we've got just over 30 MPs. We've had a bit of a pause for the moment, but we'll be back on it in a couple of days. And then just talking about a couple of things that have happened. So I talked about us, there'd been kind of nothing happening in the UK since we got our right to repair regulations. But there have been a couple of opportunities lately. There was a bill called the Digital Markets Bill that came through Parliament at the start of this year. And that was about consumer rights. But there was a visionary peer who happened to have a conversation with one of our trustees in a toilet somewhere, and got on board with the right to repair. And she saw the opportunity that right to repair is a consumer rights issue. So we were working to try and get an amendment into that bill. Unfortunately, it didn't pass, but it was a really good opportunity to kind of get a sense of where the support was, and also have conversations with the government departments. So our environment department, DEFRA, tends to lead on this, but it's also in the camp of Department of Net Zero, and they in themselves, it just highlighted all of these things where they didn't really know who was responsible for it. So the more that we have these conversations, the more that we can kind of join things up. So that was an opportunity that we didn't manage to kind of push through. The other one is that there's a WEEE, or Waste Electricals reform consultation, and that was 3 years overdue. And there was a consultation which was uninspiring. It was all about recycling, as usual. Everything, all of the legislation on waste is about recycling. But there was also a call for evidence, and that was what was quite interesting, because that asked questions about reuse targets and also about eco-labelling. So that's sort of the same sort of thing as a repair index. So we'd only just launched the declaration, but what was great is, so we had this kind of network of supportive groups, and we were able to provide some templates so that small groups who kind of, actually, if you're not in this space, it's quite hard to even understand the questions because they're really policy focused. But we were able to help a few of them respond and sort of translate it into human. Oh, there we go. Yes. This is a funny slide. So I was just going to talk about an event that's not too dissimilar to this one that we had a couple of months ago in Parliament. So we had a repair cafe in Westminster, and it was an absolute nightmare getting tools into Parliament, I will tell you that. But we managed it, and it was great because we brought this kind of microcosm of the people that signed up to the declaration. We had repair cafes from across the UK. We had some kind of national campaigning organisations and businesses. We teamed up with Back Market to do it. And it was brilliant. And the buzz in the room was just so inspiring that it just kind of now I have this vision of a mass lobby stroke repair cafe in Parliament where we can invite everybody that we want along, because it was just really striking the power of connecting constituency voices with politicians. And we know that both are important because we've been really trying hard to get MPs to sign up through constituency pressure, and some were signing up. But it's really hard to get cut through. But then we brought them to Westminster. Almost every MP that came in the room asked if there was a constituent there. Like half of those that came because they were invited. So it just really shows the importance of that kind of national level and constituency level. And if you bring it together in the right way, that's how we get repair up the agenda. So just a little bit on what's next. So on Friday, we get back on to trying to get lots of more MPs signing up to the declaration, and we'll be engaging with new ministers. And this is one of the things we were talking about earlier. Because repair is kind of spread across everything. So the asks in the declaration actually relate to 5 or 6 government departments. So we'll be kind of trying to get in touch with them and making sure that they are aware of what the public is calling for here. And then we've got Repair Day on the 19th of October. So we're really just saying that the whole of October is going to be about repair. So we're encouraging repair cafes to get in touch with newly elected MPs, say congratulations, but then also say, come and celebrate repair with us in October, because it's also the 15th anniversary of repair cafes in general. So it's a really nice way of a really nice positive way of getting politicians to engage. And then, as many of you will know, once they've been at a repair cafe, then it just switches them onto it. We'll be launching the citizen science research about reuse in waste facilities. So that'll be the slightly more kind of harder hitting side of things, and ongoing engagement, because what we found is that we've just got to respond to opportunities. We've got this policy platform, and then things come up and we just need to be ready to go. And then the other thing that we've learned from our work in the last 6 months is that we're really keen to build up business support a bit. And we know that there will be a lot of businesses that can't sign up to all of the asks in the declaration, but there'll be some surprising allies actually that really support some policies. So we want to try and build up some coalitions around them. And then again, the more different types of stakeholders you have talking about the same issue, the more likely we are to get cut through. So that's it from me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here, and I think bringing repair cafes to Parliament is the way forward. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Fiona. Thank you. Next, Claire Downey is the Policy and Research Director at the Rediscovery Centre in Dublin, where she focuses on providing an evidence base for policy development and circular living models. She also leads the education team in circular economy education and brings her connections with a wide number of organisations, including some represented here today, to the table.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you to Northern Ireland Resources Network also for having us today. So I'm going to talk about what's happening in Ireland through the lens of people and practitioners and a teeny bit of policy as well. So as mentioned, I work at the Rediscovery Centre. We're the National Centre for Circular Economy. We're located in Dublin, in an old industrial space that's been reused as a demonstration centre for the circular economy. And our mission is to lead the transition to the circular economy. But as a social enterprise, it's really important to us that that transition is fair and inclusive, as well as keeping within our natural resource boundaries. So we put people and communities at the heart of this transition, and that's why I'm going to start by talking about people and where we are in Ireland at the moment. There've been quite a lot of studies recently in Ireland on people's attitudes and behaviours, and we've already talked quite a bit about attitudes and behaviours towards this area, circular economy, reuse, repair. We've done studies ourselves, supported by the Department of Environment, into attitudes and behaviours towards the circular economy more broadly, and that found that the recognition of the term, what is circular economy, is low but growing, so still under half of people recognise that term, and that real understanding of what circular economy means is very low. But what we are seeing is that people are engaging in circular economy behaviours to some extent. So 66% of people have done something in the last 12 months, like repair, like reuse, like lending. So that's positive. We also see that that audience is roughly split in half, the general population, between what we're calling sustainably minded individuals and mainstream individuals, and that the engagement, unsurprisingly, from sustainably minded individuals is much higher. So as you can see here, in terms of repair, 75% of sustainably minded people have done something or are likely to repair in the last 12 months, compared to only 22% of the mainstream audience. And we see something similar here around lending. So what this shows us, I suppose, is we really need to find ways to bring that mainstream audience along with us, but that there are people already bought in, which is also really positive. The EPA has also done quite a lot of studies on behavioural insights. There's 8 up on their website at the moment if you're interested in this area. And I've just picked out 2, one on reuse and one on repair. And what the reuse study shows us is that quite a lot of people, 90%, have donated or passed something on for reuse in the last 12 months, which is really high engagement, although somehow only 34% of people know where their local reuse centre is. So I'm not quite sure how that works. But half of that number have actually bought something or accepted something secondhand. So we really need to see that figure changing, obviously. Around half of those from charity shops and a third of those from online. We do see people engaging in secondhand for cost reasons, which is good, but we also see 2/3 of people saying that they have concerns around quality of secondhand goods. So we still have to address those negative perceptions. In terms of lending, renting, borrowing, we see much less engagement in this type of behaviour, primarily around borrowing bikes. So obviously the bike schemes are working really well. But there's a lot of interest in libraries of things, in tool libraries. Unsurprisingly for Ireland, the engagement in this is really low because we have very few operating at the moment. So as a profile of who is a reuser in Ireland, the higher reusers tend to be female and tend to be in the age bracket 35 to 54 years old. As a guide. If we turn to repair, we see a lot more awareness of where is my local repair service, which is good. We do see high levels of engagement, but this is actually over the last 5 years, so it's a little bit longer. And we also see people are using professional services, which is good for repair. Interestingly, to some of the conversations we had earlier, 2/3 of people say that they can stitch and sew. 2/3 of people say they do small DIY repairs, and 1/3 of people say they do electrical repairs at home, which is also quite surprising. But a lot of people want to learn more repair skills. So I think that's really positive in terms of the enthusiasm for repair. Figures around repair cafes are not very high here. The awareness of what is a repair cafe is extremely low. Attendance of repair cafes is extremely low, but there's a lot of interest in them. And I will come back to that point shortly in terms of practice. And then in terms of what motivates people to repair, more information, videos, help in doing repair would motivate people. It's a cost saving, and people are seeing the connection to climate. So it's a good news story, I suppose, in terms of the interest in repair. But we do know too what people say and what people do can be quite different. So we'll look at what is actually happening in Ireland at the moment in terms of reuse. So there has been a major study into reuse in Ireland, and this looked at developing a method for how we measure what is reuse. It specifically focuses on retail of secondhand goods and online retail of secondhand goods, so physical and online. And what this study found, that's called Q2Reuse, was that there are around 1,300 reuse operators of that type in the country, and around half of those are social enterprises and charities. So that shows the really important role that social enterprises play in this space. The baseline figure that we got from that study was around 6.5 kilos per person is being reused at the moment. And the EPA subsequently did another study, which was a citizen survey. So that's asking you and you, how much did you reuse in the last year? And that includes all channels. So hand-me-downs, passing something on to your neighbor, as well as what you buy secondhand from a retail store or online. And that found that the reuse figure is around 10. So we're somewhere between 6.5 and 10. I suppose that really pales in comparison when you look at how much waste we're generating, which is 360 kilos per person. In terms of repair, we have much less data, but there is a study we're expecting to see shortly from the EPA on repair activity in Ireland. At the Rediscovery Centre, we did some EPA-funded research into insurance and the barriers that repair cafes are facing in Ireland, which explains why the earlier figure of engagement in repair cafes is quite low. That study found that there are about 10 to 15 active repair cafes at the moment, but that insurance, particularly for repair of electrical goods, is a real challenge. We also have a national directory called Repair My Stuff for repair organisations, and that has around 1,300 repair centres registered to the directory, which is, I suppose, a good number as well. Just circling back to the policy that is helping support all of this area, Philip mentioned earlier the targets that have been published in the National Waste Management Plan. They are statutory targets, and our statutory national reuse target, hooray, is 20 kilos per person. So that's double our current baseline figure, at least. So we have to double our reuse in 6 years, which means adding 50,000 extra tons capacity to our reuse sector at the moment. So we have a very ambitious target. It's very exciting, and it means we have lots of potential to really grow. The plan also includes a commitment to introducing a repair target. We're not quite sure how that will be measured yet, but it will be really interesting to find out. Our green public procurement strategy that was also mentioned recently also commits to introducing a target for procurement of repaired and reused goods within 3 years. So that will also drive reuse and repair. And then other measures include, for example, a target for more reuse facilities and recycling centres and collection services for repair. Of course, we need an enabling environment for all of this, and Philip mentioned a lot of these things. We do have good networks, of course, Community Resources Network, which is the sister network to NIRN, as well as the EPA network, which includes a wider group of stakeholders, advisory groups. We have the strategy, as I mentioned. CRNI has developed a quality mark and virtual trade fair for procurement. We have really good, strong research funding from the EPA to continue to underpin that evidence work that we need to see more reuse happening and structural supports. But as you can see, the targets are very challenging. So we have a lot more to do. Circling back to people that I mentioned earlier, we really need to find ways to bring that mainstream audience along with us to engage in reuse and repair. It's no good just passing things on to charity shops or running repair cafes. We need people to come along and engage in them. And we're really delighted to be working with the department on a national platform for the circular economy, which is all about communicating and engaging communities and delivering and supporting others to communicate the work that they're doing. We also need to foster that enabling environment for practitioners. How do we grow by 50,000 tonnes capacity our reuse? How do we double our current reuse levels? So we've talked already quite a number of occasions about financial supports. We need to see supports for labour activation to support the very active social enterprise community in this space. More green procurement, especially at smaller scale, where a lot of social enterprises are operating. And we need to be really careful with the introduction of any new policy measures, especially European ones, and how that impacts on our existing thriving reuse and repair sector. And lastly, we need investment in infrastructure. We need to build a lot of back-end services, supports, sorting centres, warehousing, to support reuse and repair as a priority over recycling and waste. And lastly, we need more research. Of course, I would say that because I love research, but we genuinely do need to look at these figures more and find more ways to underpin policy and get more system change. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You grab the microphones. I always feel like such a dragon, sort of nudging to people. You need to keep talking. You need to keep talking. So thank you all so much. It's been really, really interesting. I picked up sort of a few things, and just to say as well, we may have to interrupt this if the minister arrives, but we're fluid. We can go with the flow. A few things that I kind of picked up here is the issue around skills, awareness, and people. Also, of course, enabling and investment. What about that awareness? I mean, the people in this room, the skills that are on offer, the networks, how are we singing about them? How do we get people to know about these things, to come along? How important they are? Yeah, Claire, you're smiling at me.
There's lots of things in that question, I guess. First of all, the first thing I was trying to highlight there was around language and our use of language. A lot of these activities are very natural to people, but when we talk about things like circular economy and climate links, they can distance people from the actual thing that we're trying to engage on. So I think we have to really find good ways to communicate around the action, because I think people love the actions in this space. And then we need to, I suppose, look at how effective marketing companies have been in selling new products. We need to adopt those, I suppose, crudely speaking, that, the same approach, the same kind of effort to become clever about how we talk about this area.
Yeah, Fiona, you're nodding there.
I'm just thinking about. Well, firstly, we know that the awareness of repair cafes is relatively low, and there's similar stats in Scotland and Wales, I think. And so we mapped the repair cafes across the UK last year, and we thought there were 250 when we started. It turned out there were more than 500, and that's now grown. It's now 650 in the UK. So that's a good start. There's a place for people to find them. But then it also strikes me that kind of a lot of you will be familiar with often demand exceeds like your ability to fix, right? So can we cope with all of those 61% of people that want to go to a repair cafe? That doesn't surprise me at all, because everyone loves it if there's one in their local area. But then it's all about then kind of building up the skills and how do we get more repair cafes to meet that demand, and it sort of has to happen incrementally. But that's where you need these big injections of kind of resource and support for these initiatives to happen.
The investment enabling kind of factor that you mentioned there, Neva?
I really like the point about being proud of repair, and I think this is a key thing to really make it not a matter of, it's a bit of a taboo in some cases, or people have these prejudices and it's a bit of a stigma about secondhand and repair. So I think this is a key thing on working on attitudes. In the EU, for instance, we saw during the European Year of Skills also how everything was focused only on the highest possible levels of education. And we were saying, yeah, but if you're talking about green transition that we actually need the skills of the past in a way. It's manual skills that are really needed for the green transition. And I think that's also something that we really have to reinforce. And I'll just give a small example, because I only came into my role last year. And one of the things that I found so delightful was that in one of the case studies, I invite you to read the report on skills we produced, that the repair skills that these people who had been distanced from the labor market learned for repairing the washing machines are actually directly applicable for the wind turbines. So it's also about the jobs of tomorrow that these skills are for. And I think that's another narrative that we need to work on.
Yeah, I suppose there is an element of repair being seen as the sort of poor cousin almost in a way. Philip, what do you think? I mean, you're looking at the skills gap there as well. There is a real sense of this ramping up in terms of actually being a force.
Yeah, and just on the communications piece, I mean, for us, if you want to communicate with people in a really exciting, slick, dynamic way, the last thing you do is ask civil servants to do it, because our default response will be, well, we need to put a half-page ad into the Irish Times or something like that, completely missing TikTok and social media. So we need to be much more dynamic and flexible in how we communicate and evangelize the circular economy message, and we're trying to do that through the circular economy platform and also through mywaste.ie. But it is a challenge, and it's going to require a kind of us to move out of our comfort zone and accept that we're losing a bit of control around communicating that message, but it's for a greater outcome. In terms of skills, I think it is a real challenge. It's a growing challenge, but it's an exciting challenge to have, isn't it? That we're going to require this level of resource, this level of skills available to support the circular economy transition and to meet the repair and reuse targets that we have, which Clara said are really, really exciting. So if we can provide that sort of policy certainty and a bit of funding certainty as well, then it supports people's perception of this being a thing that is going to be around for a while, and will put more people into these sorts of skills areas.
I'm intrigued a little bit around the idea of quantitative targets and measuring all of this, because some of this seems terribly informal as well. I mean, how can you keep track of that sort of thing if it's a neighbour offering to fix and all that sort of thing? That's impossible, surely, to track, isn't it?
I would just say, but you have to start from somewhere, and what gets measured gets managed, and vice versa. So there are certain tangible things that the local authorities can do, or that state operators can do in terms of supporting it. So, for example, we can put money into civic amenity sites and convert those from being sort of recycling centres to circular economy hubs. But yeah, it's a challenge. But I think if you don't start from somewhere, then you'll find an excuse to not come up with metrics.
Yeah, exactly. Fiona nodding, and Claire as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we were. I was having a few discussions with partners when we were doing the electrical waste reform consultation, and just talking about how the problem with how that all works is that waste is measured from the moment it kind of almost gets to the rubbish dump. It's waste. It's too late, and you need to start measuring this from the moment almost someone makes a decision about whether or not to keep something in use or not. And so you can't do it if someone's just lending something to a neighbour, or you're passing on your phone to a family member. But there are things like Freegal and FreeCycle, so you can measure a little bit of that. You can measure what happens at repair cafes. You can measure what gets repaired in small high street repair shops, and that doesn't seem to be being measured at the moment. So just if it was part of legislation that you got extra points for repairing more than reusing, and then that much more than recycling, then you'd have to figure out. And it's just, you just need people figure out if you make them. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, Claire, you're all about the data.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We need to be measuring where the decision point is that we can influence it. I mean, if you want to target, you have to be able to influence those decisions. So in terms of that particular study that was done on measuring reuse, it looks at what is the secondhand sales at the till, so that you're trying to measure secondhand sales and help influence and support the more sales, I suppose, as secondhand. Obviously, more is not always good, but in terms of the offset of new products, that's where the measure would be. But you can still, as the EPA did, do surveys with people to ask them if they can estimate the informal exchanges, those hand-me-downs, and get a sense of what that is. But it's not something that you would be influencing with a target in any case. So it's good to know, but it's for a different purpose.
Nina, yeah.
I think it's difficult indeed to measure reuse, but I come from, working at the EU level, so that waste hierarchy that we saw at the beginning. So the reuse, that's basically about passing something to a neighbor or something like this. It's actually under waste prevention. So you're not even entering the management of waste. And what I think is easier to measure, and what we would want to aim for in our advocacy for quantitative targets, is actually preparing for reuse. So that's at the point when an item had already been, discarded in one way or another, and then through repair or another sort of process, it is prepared for reuse. But that's then an easier thing to measure indeed, because you could measure the output of repair cafes, the donations to charity shops in your case, and so on. So I think that might work. But it's very important. I think there are differences in terms of what's considered waste in policy frameworks. In Ireland, it's a completely different story from a lot of other European countries. So then you kind of have to find the way that works in a specific context.
And then we all have to learn from each other, of course, as well. I was interested when you say about Austria having that repair bonus and how well they're doing with things, because they are number one in the world for recycling. So is there a sort of connection between that commitment to repair and reuse and a nation's circularity and recycling ability and, meeting green targets? Is there that connection between prioritising repair and actually becoming greener?
I sure would like to think so.
Yeah.
I don't have any studies on that from Austria, but I know we have a very, very active member network there, Reuse Austria, who does a tremendous job lobbying the national politicians and also implementing repair cafes and all sorts of measures. And I know it's taken a lot of efforts to achieve these breakthroughs, such as the repair bonus. But it is unfortunate indeed that in that case it's a specific amount of funding. And in fact, there were cases. I think actually it happened in Vienna. So that's another thing to keep in mind when policy measures are introduced like that. That you have to ensure continuity, because what happened in one case was that a lot of staff was hired, repair was doing fantastic, and then the money ran out and it collapsed. So this is not the answer directly to your question, but I definitely think that, of course, if it comes from the highest levels of prioritizing reuse, repair, and so on, then you will see that at all other levels.
Yeah, we were chatting about that earlier as well, about the need for it to be top down, but then there is that groundswell, this network here of pushing up as well. I mean, I don't know that people realise just how powerful they actually are, but you saw that, Fiona, in Westminster, because people came, MPs realised actually we need to chat here, we need to be present, we need to hear about this.
Yeah, and that's, again, what was quite stark for me coming from a climate campaigner, and we did lots of constituency campaigning, and MPs would get tired of people coming and telling them what to do in lobbies, right? But that's totally different with coming here and then kind of seeing that kind of repair cafes are the advocates. Repair cafes are already doing an amazing service to the community, right? So who wouldn't want to talk to them? So that already helps to A, show demand, B, show that this is a really important community service. And then MPs are much more likely to kind of be able to respond than just saying, I need you to do this and finger pointing. So absolutely, it's showing what's possible and showing what's wanted.
Yeah. Great. Lots of nods there as well. Sorry, Philip. Yeah.
I think we need to find a way to make your voices cut through much more loudly than the voices of those people who are losing their minds because there's a tethered cap on their milk carton now, or because they have to bring their plastic
You've had this argument in your house as well.
Yeah. So how do we make your voices drown out the voices who are probably on the one hand saying governments aren't doing enough on climate change, but then saying, why do we have to have these ridiculous tethered caps? So we need to amplify your voice.
Yeah. Okay, great. So yes.
At the Rediscover Centre, we really focus on demonstration. It is a demonstration centre. I'm only there 2.5 years, so I don't really claim any stake in the development of it. But you see people walk in every day with this huge face of inspiration, and it's really exciting to see that every time. So it's all about showcasing, showing, giving examples, just giving a way in for people to see what they can actually do in a really practical sense. So it is, very powerful to have that demonstration. And just on, I suppose, the bonus scheme and VAT, and there's a lot of ways we can introduce individual incentives that might run out after a certain time. I do think we need to look at the economy as a whole and see where are all of the subsidies that are undermining this work, and where are all the incentives that are supporting it, and where are all the things that we could be doing with repair and with secondhand instead of new, and try and take a more holistic approach to see what actually needs to structurally change.
Sorry, just a little microphone malfunction there. Are there questions in the room? Oh, look at all the hands flying up. I love it. Okay. It was a bit of a race between yourself, Sue, and Dan. So whichever one would like to go first. And are we dishing out a microphone or just get people to yodel? Yeah.
I think coming back to what the last point, I'm seeing more and more traditional businesses putting, especially fashion businesses, putting up, recycle your garment here, bring your keys back, and la 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 la, Marks and Spencer's are next, and so on. How much of that is real, and how much of that is greenwashing, do we think? And how can we shift from the greenwashing to the real? Where can we build the capacity? I'd be really fascinated in your thoughts on that, because it really seems to have popped up recently.
If I may, I think the fact that mostly they will dish out vouchers in exchange for that goes to show how real it is, right? Because it's basically stimulating further consumption. And we also talk about how, they say, oh yeah, bring this to us and we will, find it the next home. But that's a key point in my advocacy and our advocacy, is that social enterprises are in fact the only actors in these value chains that prioritize local reuse. And producers, indeed, that's an applause for yourselves. But producers effectively, they want to produce more and sell more. So it's counter to their fundamental business model to try to reduce, So I would say it's largely greenwashing, but I know it's not necessarily a popular opinion, but I'm sure in this room it is.
Yeah, Fiona, yeah.
I would say absolutely we need to be careful about greenwashing. When you've got Primark saying that they're circular because they're teaching people how to sew on a button. No, but I know they do it. Yeah, so that's clearly greenwashing. But things like Marks and Spencer offering a repair service in store feels positive. It's not linked to buying a new product. And I think the thing is, it's that kind of we're not going to fix the system with only people who are squeaky clean, right? We need the dominant players to slowly shift. So it's about shifting business models. And, where like Selfridges have a target to be, I think it's 50% circular by 2030, So if you start seeing those big picture targets, then I feel like it's real. And that's where kind of you want to be supporting them to do it. But it's just when it's really tokenistic and linked to buying new, then you kind of know it's greenwash.
This one here, because Siobhan asked me that question, how do we get from now to the future? How do we, and you guys seem to be really fighting the how. And giving the tools for the how. Yeah. So how do we? Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much, Sue. With question from Dan. There's a few other hands going up there as well.
As a question for Claire and Phil. As a member of the Lions Environmental Group, could I mention a recent land project involving nearly 8,000 students, which was a climate crisis awareness session for post-primary schools in Ireland? How would you see the involvement of Lions in Ireland helping you achieve your waste action plan and the enabling environment?
That's community connection, isn't it?
So, as I was saying earlier on, over the last 5 years or so, we've had a very strong emphasis on bringing in the broader stakeholder environment to support us in developing waste action plan, developing the circular economy strategy, and then in implementation as well. So there's a seat at the table for anybody really in terms of informing the next iteration of the circular economy strategy and the ongoing work that we're doing on the waste action plan. One of the great things that arose from COVID was that not sure. Oh, it is okay. That when we first started our waste advisory group, which was about informing the development of the waste action plan, we were kind of constrained by the physical constraints of meeting rooms and the numbers of people who could attend, etc. But COVID completely opened that up, and we now have about 50 or 60 people coming to quarterly meetings. So the more voices that are in the room, the better. And as I say, we made it clear to all stakeholders in the waste advisory group at the start that this isn't just us doing the work here. We need you. We want your expertise, and we want you to evangelize for the work that we're doing together externally. Just on the piece, sorry if I may go back to your question. Demand management is a key part, not just in terms of circular economy, although I think circular economy includes energy anyway, but when you think of, for example, what needs to be done in terms of energy efficiency and reducing energy use, demand management is a key part there as well. So again, it's incumbent upon governments and all stakeholders to take on the responsibility to do that bit around demand management, because the circular economy transition is about, for me, it's about managing consumption and production in ways that make the planet a livable place for 11 billion people. So the demand side, I think we sometimes forget. it's probably the more difficult piece.
I'm keen to get one more quick question in just before the Minister arrives, so this gentleman's been very patient here.
I just want to make a point rather than a question. There's an empty chair here today, and that is those people who make a living from repair. Most of the people here today are largely repair cafes, but this is linked to the economy, and it's linked to the sustainability of something. Where we do have in Northern Ireland businesses who operate in total repair of things, and their voices, I don't think, are heard in the middle of it.
Is that a bit of the...
That's something that needs to be enhanced in a sense.
Is that something where education comes in around the skills gap that there is in repair skills for yourselves as government? Yeah, it's good.
Just to come back to the repair directory that we have, repairmystuff.ie was an effort to try and show what local repair services are available. It needs a lot more promotion still and a lot more work, but there are 1,300 repair organisations on it. And as part of the Right to Repair Directive now, and the other one, ESP, what's it called? Sustainable Products Regulation or something. Both of those are going to require that member states have directories. And so there's going to be a lot more focus on it and making sure that it's used. I mean, it's one thing to put a directory out on a platform and it's another thing to get people to use it. So we do need people to actually look at it. But that is trying to highlight, I suppose, who's out there doing repairs and drive people towards them.
I think the issue for me was that there was always, in certainly in our repair cafe, a slight concern that you might be taking work away from businesses who are making a living at this, and that's counterproductive in the longer term.
Again, it's all that just transition and fairness and representation and everything. Great. So, look, I'd just like to offer our thanks to everybody on the panel here. Philip Nugent, Neva Nattigal, Fiona Dare and Claire Downey. Thank you very much indeed. And I'd like to invite Emer Montague to the podium now.
Good afternoon. On behalf of Northern Ireland Resources Network, I'd like to extend my deepest thanks to Minister Moore and Tom Elliott, the chair of the ERA Committee, for sponsoring this event today, and for Minister Moore for honouring us with your presence. Your support and recognition means a great deal to the Reuse and Repair Network. The event today is to showcase the incredible efforts of NRM members who are leading the way in reuse and repair and making it more accessible and mainstream in Northern Ireland. It highlights the pivotal role played by local communities, social enterprises, charities and local authorities in reframing waste management. These groups are working tirelessly to ensure that reusable materials are diverted from landfills and shared, repaired, lent, repurposed, reused, all contributing to a more sustainable future. The Use and Repair Network is built on the foundation of innovation, creativity and dedication. Our members have shown that with a bit of ingenuity and creativity, almost anything can be given a new lease of life, from refurbishing furniture and electronics to upcycling clothing and household items. Our members prove that the potential for reuse and repair is limitless. Minister Moore, your presence here today underscores the importance of our mission. It highlights the growing recognition of the environmental, social and economic benefits of reuse and repair. By diverting items from landfill and reducing the demand for new resources, we are not only protecting our planet, but also enabling a culture of sustainability. NIRN is dedicated to continuing our work with policymakers to advocate for the necessary changes. We are committed to providing ongoing support to our members and partners as they lead the way in creating a more circular economy. The momentum generated at this event gives us great optimism for the future, knowing that together we can transform the vision of reuse and repair from niche to normal. Thank you. I would now like to welcome Minister Moore to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start by thanking Emer and Northern Ireland Resources Network for the kind invitation to attend this event today. I would also commend you for bringing repair and reuse to Stormont, allowing the opportunity to see firsthand the progress made and the possibilities that repair and reuse presents in Northern Ireland. Waste prevention, reduction and reuse are at the top of the waste hierarchy. Whilst we have important targets to achieve for recycling, we must be mindful that the best option when it comes to waste is to prevent its generation in the first place. The Northern Ireland Resources Network, or NIRN as they are also known, members here today are at the forefront contributing to the prevention of waste, reducing our impact on the environment and transitioning to a low carbon circular economy. You provide not only environmental and economical benefits, but also social benefits to the citizens of Northern Ireland. I recognise that in many cases members could not operate without the dedicated volunteers, given their time and energy to reuse and repair activities which benefit others. For that, I sincerely thank you. Looking back to 2020, when my department published the current waste prevention programme, Stopping Waste in its Tracks, it included a feasibility study into the economic and social benefits of establishing a reuse and repair network in Northern Ireland. From the study undertaken by Community Resources Network Ireland, Northern Ireland's first repair and reuse network was established and became a standalone organisation in February 2022. NIRN membership has grown in the last 2 years and is one of the key successes of the current waste prevention programme. I am pleased to see the continued beneficial collaboration between NIRN and their Irish counterparts and the development of new partnerships within Ireland. NIRN has also forged successful working relationships and collaboration with organisations in the UK and indeed across Europe. I welcome you all to Stormont here today. We need to change our linear model of economy where we take, make, use and waste. Reducing the amount of waste we generate together with managing our resources more sustainably will allow a move to a more closed loop local system where precious resources are reused, refurbished, remanufactured or recycled. Waste is a priority issue for me, and my vision for Northern Ireland is a strong green economy which values its resources and actively closes the loop by putting as many of those resources back into the system as possible. I congratulate NIRN on their successful Sustainable Conversations podcast series, which was one of the 3 finalists selected in the 2023 European Week for Waste Reduction Association NGO category. It's a fantastic achievement which recognises and highlights the value of reuse and repair activities here in Northern Ireland. Finally, I'm keen to continue to promote reuse and repair and wish you every success in leading the way, taking repair and reuse from niche to normal. Just in closing, I would like to say I came along here a bit earlier when all the activity was occurring at the back, and it's really fantastic to see this happening within Parliament buildings. It's such a vibrancy within the space, and I think this is something that's very close to my heart. Just before I came in MLA in December 2019, one of the last motions I brought to Council was around this issue, and I think it's really, really positive that we have this being showcased in the work that's been done thus far. I did go rummaging around my house for stuff that needed repaired, and all I could find was me. And also Loch Ness potentially, okay. But the benefit around both that and this in terms of Loch Ness and what you're doing here is we have a plan. We have a plan to be able to give us a sustainable future ahead here in Northern Ireland, and seeing so many volunteers and staff members within this room committed to the work that you're doing gives me real inspiration for the future, and I think we can achieve so much together. So I just want to say thank you for coming here, thank you for putting this on, and look forward to engaging you after this, so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Moore, for your kind words. As a token of appreciation today, we challenged a couple of our members to make a gift for you out of reused materials. So we have one for you, and we also have one for Tom Elliott, who's co-sponsored the event today. So I'd like you to kindly hand over. This is the one that we've had made from the Fashion and Textile Design Centre, and we also have one made from Tools for Solidarity.
This is fantastic.
By Sue Bamford. Yeah. And it features, just to let you know, it has embroidered on it our strapline, which is rethink, reuse, repair, because we absolutely identify before we can take action on reuse and repair, we have to drive awareness, we have to drive a psychological change, we have to rethink our mindset. So,
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you, Emer, and thank you, Minister Muir, as well. I'm sure he'll be very happy to show you his bow tie afterwards. Well, incredibly, we're at lunchtime and we're here pretty much on time. So very well done to everybody for doing that. The repair hub is open, so please go and use. Lunch will be served just down the corridor. We'll be back here at 2:00 for our closing session this afternoon. It's been a really creative, productive and interesting morning, inspirational for sure. So keep the conversations going over lunchtime and we'll see you again at 2:00. Thank you all so much.
It's amazing to be here, especially after this morning and early afternoon. So much inspirational thought and leadership. Just thought it'd be great to say that. Delighted to be here. So you heard a little bit about me. I work at the Playhouse. The Playhouse is an arts organisation and theatre based in Derry, Londonderry. It produces great art. I suppose we would call it producing theatre and music that inspires. Not only do we produce it, but we encourage people to enjoy it. We also empower people through learning and engagement programs, and we also champion the arts in relation to making peaceful change. But the reason we often talk about being here is people making meaning together creatively, peacefully, and with hope. That's the difference we think we make as a theatre. And I'm also here to talk about a project, a program and project that we're partnering with NIRN and others on, which is called Artitude. And that's a place-based, as it says there, collaborative movement. So bringing people across the Derry City and Strabane district area to look at how we might transform our relationship with nature, waste, the circular economy and climate action. So the Playhouse is one of the first theatres on these islands to employ a climate action officer. Somebody asked me the question earlier on as to why does a theatre get involved in this work? And my response is just simply just how much you think the arts is, how valuable it is at the centre of your society or the centre of your civic life. If you value the arts and you have institutions that are artistically led, then of course it should be involved in this type of thing. So you can see the partners there: Zero Waste Northwest, Derry City and Strabane District Council, Queen's University, and of course NIRN. So we did a pilot, little short video. Hopefully it works. It'll tell you more than I can, just about some of the aspects of what happened in the pilot and the effects of it.
Society tells us that resources are scarce and that we need to be in competition with each other. Creating partnerships is an antidote to that.
So can you see just there? There is always 2 or 3 people who will tell me a fascinating story that's come from their granny or their uncle or something like that.
It was so lovely to see people coming in and discovering the joy of communal gardening.
We've got a compost bin at the house and we've got like a vegetable patch.
It's a beautiful setting and the work they do here is fantastic and creating the awareness.
People have had to make change themselves because they haven't been able to rely on the public authorities to do that.
We feed off each other, we assist each other, we back each other up.
There's authenticity in the stories of
this project. There's multiple stories to tell.
There's workshops, we're teaching kids about, the great outdoors, and you can see everybody's really enjoying it.
We'll all walk away with some more connects, friends, that we can get together and continue this learning process.
There's got to be an element where we're enabling the people who are already engaged and involving everyone else who definitely wants to be engaged but sometimes doesn't know how to get engaged.
We've got an abundance of creativity, an abundance of learning, an abundance of intelligence, of energy, and by coming together, then we can create system change. We're not going to do it by ourselves.
So you can see there that it's about a place-based approach, and it's not only about art and about reuse and repair and circularity and climate, it's about systems change. So one of the main learning points, well, there are probably several, but a couple worth mentioning, is that people need to feel connected. They need to feel part of the change, they need to feel they have some agency over the change. That was one thing, was a clear learning. And another one, I think, is that you can't enable that change. I think it's kind of been said today already, unless you also enable the broader systems change. So the fact of the matter is, on the whole, the way in which we do things doesn't work for the way we would like things to work. So we have to change the system. So I look a little bit around this, and of course, in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland, you have a president there that's very interesting on this topic. So he's given various addresses around this sort of way the system works and how it might need to change. And so I've got to quote a little thing from him around the current economic model. It's an address he gave at OECD. So he was talking about the current economic model. He says, "New ideas are thus now required, and even more their communication to citizens. Ideas based on equality, universal public services, equity of access, sufficiency, sustainability." He was on to say that there are plenty of new ideas there, but he says they must find their way onto the public street. So the other big learning is that we didn't reach everybody, and even in the Derry City and Stormont District Council area. But if we want this sort of shift to happen, we've got to position this so that everybody can actually take part and help with that. So, and then the other thing we would say is that art, and I think Sue said that very brilliantly at the start, is that art's at the heart of this. It's at the center of it. It's not an add-on that you use to help make the existing system work. It's the way in which the system ought to be thinking about working. So if you're going to transform, you've got to put art at the heart. And why? Why should you put it at the heart? Just to answer that question, number one, I referred to it earlier, it helps us make meaning. And we can't reimagine the world if we don't know what it means, or we can't see what it means now and how we could shift it. Again, the work we saw earlier around how we make marks in the world, how that inspirational kind of craft on jumpers and other things makes us rethink our approach to things. That making a mark's a very powerful role for the arts and culture. And the other one is looking backwards to look forwards. The stories that are really important to us that have been passed down over generations and generations. And if we go across the world into indigenous cultures in Native America or in New Zealand or even here on the island of Ireland and all across these islands, we will learn some of the stories and relearn some of the stories that will help us to reimagine the future. So this is not a linear thing from our point of view. This is a cultural shift we're talking about. So if it's a cultural shift, you've really got to think about it culturally. It's an act of imagination. So that's what Artitude going forward is going to do, just to give you the information. A set of residencies, long-term, year-long residencies in community settings, helping people to do things that matter to them, to start to shift this. Festival programming, which is a way to gather lots of different people together. And we'll be doing that over 3 years. A very strong learning and dissemination thread, and some really important research and evaluation. We want to listen to people, you know, at the grassroots level and find out what it is that we should learn from them. So I mentioned the cultural shifts, so just to say a few of those out loud. So the power and meaning of place, I think, is really important in this. We look at public policy from a government level, and we look at it, I suppose, disparately at a grassroots level based on the organisations. But if you also look at it at a place-based approach, that could be really helpful because people care about place, because they have agency in place, and it matters to them, and they inhabit it, and they have pride in it. New stories, old stories, I've mentioned that, learning from the past to look to the future. This one I think has been talked about a lot, but the question I would ask is, how do we do that well? How do we collaborate together? We are collaborating, and we can see evidence of that, but it's not, our practice of collaboration is pretty weak, I would suggest. And that last word of enchantment, I think, is really important. This isn't about the obvious stats, even though they're really important, and measuring this really matters, and having credible information is really important. But we will only shift if our imaginations are engaged, if our deepest sense of emotions and the stories that matter to us are engaged. We won't shift otherwise. So enchantment's a good thing to have in the room, I think. These are fairly obvious in a room like this. But again, worth saying, GDP to well-being. We do a lot of measuring around gross domestic product or gross added value, but we have programs of government that are to do with well-being. We don't seem to kind of put as much value in that. The others, I think, are fairly obvious. Maybe one to say very clearly is the last one, exploitation to equity. We talk a little bit about fairness in the room today, but that has really got to be central to it. At the moment, our current paradigm, even though we don't like to admit it, it is exploitative, and I'm including myself in that scenario. It exploits resources, it exploits people, but really what we need is a more equitable way of doing things. So that's a cultural shift. Hopefully that wasn't too serious for you. Thank you.
Kevin, thank you very much indeed. And just a reminder that Emer McNally has been recording this day in graphic form, and you can see what she's been working on just as you go down into the repair hub on the right there. It's fabulous. All the speakers have been immortalised, so do spot yourselves. So no one in this room is likely to be in any doubt of the difference made by what each and every one of you actually does. But our next video, Story of a Jumper, reinforces just how important every thread of every strand that makes up this movement is.
Yesterday, scissors cutting, an old Singer sewing machine spinning. These sounds remind me of my grandmother, always mending, whether for others or herself. These are your grandpa's favorite trousers. Another stitch here and voila, good as new. Beside her sewing, I'd linger, listening to her tales and asking her many questions. Back then, I couldn't tell what anchored me there, but I sensed its comforting feeling. Now I understand. It was passion, love, and bond. The bond between us. The bond between her and the worn garments that she tenderly repaired. Between her and her beloved ones. It took a long journey in my life around the globe to fully appreciate this connection, found again here in Northern Ireland, where that same spirit thrives among people who love to repair, nurture and share. A hole may loom in my life, but I hold the needle to mend it. Today, Unraveled, the story of a jumper. Author Marcella Di Paolo. Illustrator Kira Finnegan. Editor Colin O'Mahony. I have served my role in this life honestly, loyally, and with integrity. I come from good stock, you could say. However, I was becoming tired, worn down, worn out, and just plain old tired. I started developing a hole. This hole was draining energy from me. My partner, my owner, wasn't very excited to choose me from among her clothes anymore. And I could tell she was upset about it because we really had an extraordinary time together. I had seen other objects in the house being dismissed, and I was wondering what was happening to them. This hole needed love, attention, and repair to bring back my vitality. This whole situation had gone on for too long. But still, I wasn't ready to give up. I had so much more to give and serve. My soul was dynamic and teeming with potential, big enough and with enough energy for a second chance to shine in this life. I was lucky that my partner also had a strong soul and wasn't hesitant to keep taking great care of me. She took me to a place where souls and holes went to get mended. Going in, I was nervous. However, I had a chance to mix with other pre-loved souls who were in a similar position. We were attended to by fixers, carers, and repairers, creative minds working to give us new purpose. We had new life breathed into us at a time when we thought our vitality was waning. We were transformed. I was transformed. The day got even more exciting when I realized that we were back home, but not just me and my partner. She had found new members of the family, a beanie hat that would match with my colors, a hot water bottle cover, and a cushion cover, all from the same old treasure, a pretty and loved jumper like me. This hole was repaired, and the soul of my partner had new life breathed into it. So, if you have something that you love, something a bit worn or in need of some loving care and restoration, go to find those spaces where the souls and holes are repaired. It's all part of the circle of life. This story was produced with the support of the Artitude, Climate, Culture and Circularity Project, with funding from the National Lottery Climate Action Fund. For more information on the Artitude project, please visit the Playhouse website. With much gratitude to Claire Mulvaney, who planted the seeds from which this story of change has grown.
Beautiful story, and one that really encapsulates this movement. Emer, I'd like to invite you to the podium for a few closing remarks before we wind up.
One of the, well, not one, but a core value in being part of the Artitude project is the recognition that arts is central in terms of how we communicate the message going forward. And the story of the jumper is one of the outputs of this project. The other aspect to think about as well is that when we host events like this, we bring along a graphic recorder because we recognize that there are other ways of capturing the information that we're saying today and then communicating that ongoing as evergreen content in our social media. We also recognise that sometimes the messages that we're trying to communicate can be very challenging for the audiences that we're trying to reach. And we are very comfortable in this room talking about circularity, about biodiversity, about climate change, CO2 emissions, whereas the general public will struggle with those terminologies. And actually it can be off-putting, intimidating, and plain sometimes scary. So actually what the arts allow us to do, and hopefully what you've seen today in terms of the boards that we've got illustrators to develop for us, is how we're now looking at how, as being part of the Artitude project, which has been kindly funded by the National Lottery Climate Action Fund, how we then are using that to communicate the message of our members and of the value that our members bring to reuse and repair in Northern Ireland. I just want to finish the day by doing a huge round of thank yous. So if you can leave the clapping right to the end. But first of all, I really have to acknowledge Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs. One, for their continuing funding of Northern Ireland Resources Network. Two, for their funding of the event today. Three, for encouraging and inspiring the Minister to join us. And four, when we, a number of months back, went to the department to say, we'd like to host our next event at Stormont, the colleagues there just going, yeah, okay, and being so engaged and working proactively with us to develop what we have today. So I just really want to put a special word of thanks to Wendy, Ruth and Leslie. Second set of people that I really have to give credit to is the linchpins of NRN, which is Helen and Caroline. They are a formidable force, and I could not do my job at all unless I had their support and backing. So personal thanks to both of you. The other linchpins of the organisation are our volunteers, who are our board. So that's Marcus, Heidi, Nuala, Liam and Michael. And without them giving of their time and energy and experience and skills and collaborating with us freely, we would not be able to operate as an organisation. So my personal thanks to all of you. All of the speakers today, again, the stories that they've told, the highlighting of the collaboration to grow this network and the sharing of their experiences from other regions allows us to understand and learn and maybe adopt some of those measures ourselves as we go forward in our personal lives or in our roles, in our communities or in our jobs. So thank you all for sharing those stories today. Emer McNally for coming along and depicting not just in relation to, drawing and communicating through the arts what has been said today, but also bringing her imagination to this event and tying it in by making it look like the Giant's Causeway. So personal thanks for you for that creativity in that. It doesn't feel like we're having an event without Rory and Danny because they've been with us in terms of any time that we do any video. So really appreciate that. Again, Rosalind Skillen is not part of the NRN team, but she does feel like she's part of the NRN team. And she has been there helping us from our very first event in the Playhouse to our event in Lislagan Farm last year, and today recording podcasts. All of the members of the network, again, if you weren't members of this network, we would not have a network. We wouldn't be having an event here today. So I really personally thank you for attending and your support of the network, and particular thanks given to all of the members who've come along here today to share their lending, their sharing and their reuse and their repair. So hopefully inspiring, others who are not active in this space currently, but want to learn more, but also particularly the politicians, so that when they're looking at funding and policy for the future, they remember that we've brought this to their space and they have a greater understanding of what we are delivering. Other special thanks has to go to the Fashion and Textile Design Centre, or one of our members. So in terms of the t-shirts that my colleagues have been wearing today, we've all went out and bought those from a charity shop, each individually. Some of us really easily, some of us more challenged in doing that. But we've then given them to the Fashion and Textile Design Centre, who've logoed them up. So it's that thing about you can create a corporate image. You just don't always need to buy new. There are ways of doing it. The badges that we have, they again are made by the Fashion and Textile Design Centre. And the bags that anyone who's got anything fixed, you will have been given a bag today. That was made from an organisation in 5 Mile Town who makes corporate clothing. That's the offcuts off their manufacturing process. That would otherwise have been given as waste. That was given to the Fashion and Textile Design Centre, who've now made bags from it, and again had that logoed up with our logo. So again, it's that thing about, sometimes I'm sure if you've been at other events, there's freebies there, which have been made maybe farther afield or plastic or whatever else. But what we're trying to demonstrate in the work that we're doing is that you can do this and you can embrace reuse and repair in doing that. I am sure I have forgotten somebody in the process of doing all of this, but really, again, just want to thank all of you as delegates for attending today, for your time and attention, and really just ask of you that as you go out of here today, to think about, what has been inspiring, what are some of the actions that you can then do ongoing, personally, I said, in your communities or in your organisations, to develop further reuse and repair and move it from niche to normal. Thank you.
Emer, thank you so much. And if I can add my voice to the chorus of thanks to you and all of the team for everything that you have done. No, it's been wonderful. It's been a great experience to be part of this. Heartfelt thanks to all of you for coming along and to the staff here at Stormont. Emer mentioned these beautiful badges. Don't forget to hand them back, lovely as they are. You can't take them home. They have to be reused. So pay them forward by handing them back. We've been encouraged today to acts of imagination, acts of joyful rebellion. We've heard that we are dynamic and teeming with potential when we are seeking reuse and repair. There's no doubt there's a long way to go, let's be honest about that, but I'm reminded today of something I learned when I was doing my A-levels. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and that's whole with a W. It's the basic tenet of Gestalt psychology. Every ripped shirt that's repaired, every hairdryer or pair of straighteners that now works, every bike that can now be cycled, every teacup glued maybe together with gold. Each act of repair or reuse and encouragement to do that is a part that adds up to a greater whole and a circle that keeps on expanding, bringing that niche to normal. I'll maybe see some of you again on the repair day in October, here's hoping. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for today, for coming along, being so engaged and invested. Thank you for all that you do, and safe home. Thank you.